morning and welcome to our 158th weekly webcast. Now, if this is the first time you're joining us, welcome. If you've been with us before, welcome back. And so the way this call works is this is an AMA, meaning you can ask me anything. You can ask me business questions, personal questions, career questions. The call lasts for 3 hours or until there's no more questions. Now, this week, all I'm going to be doing is taking questions from you. I don't have any prepared content. So without further ado, let's begin, and thank you as always. All right. So late last night, I saw a couple questions posted. If you post at night, just know a lot of times they get deleted. So this one came from Huey, who wrote, "Hi, Chris." Hey, Huey. "I'm a fresh graduate and I can't get a job. There's one finance advisory group that approached me. I'm a bit introverted and I don't have much friends. I don't really care or know if this career is right for me. Can you talk about financial advisor careers? Thanks." Yeah, a couple questions there. So let me first of all touch upon the entire introverted concept. So I used to be much more introverted. I was a programmer for many years back in the 1990s. And I loved programming, but I was stuck in this zone coding for 10 or 12 hours a day and not interacting with people. And I go to parties and I feel kind of nervous. And so the only way to break out of being an introvert or not feeling comfortable around people is to run towards your fears. You always want to run to your fears in business and in life. Because I promise you, the fears that you have, everybody else has, but they just don't talk about it. So if you're fearful of public speaking, run towards your fear and present a lot and learn to enjoy it. Condition yourself to enjoy it. And I teach you all about that, how to teach or how to present passionately straight from the heart on my online courses and my MBA program. So please check that out. And I was terrified for years, man. I was terrified until I ran to my fear and I learned to enjoy it. The same thing when it comes to other issues in business, like being fearful of accounting. Don't worry. If you understand accounting thoroughly, and these are just props here for my options course I'm going to be releasing soon, but if you build on things one step at a time and you understand options or accounting or finance, whatever it might be, it's much easier to apply it in the real world. Because if you memorize stuff in business, you'll never succeed. Now, when I was in undergraduate university 8 million years ago at McGill University, what happened was I got a D in accounting. And the reason I got a D in accounting was because I was trying to memorize equations. Don't memorize stuff, try to understand it. Once you understand it, then you enjoy it. It's like a game, it's like a puzzle. And that's what I'm trying to do with my upcoming options course, which is taking me 8 million years to make, but it's coming soon, I promise you, this year. So just try to understand things and run towards your fears, and you condition yourself to enjoy it. Yeah. And you can also think of what, Tony Robbins talks about when he discusses pain versus pleasure. So if you narrow down everything in life to pain or pleasure, it makes you longer term focused. So for example, if I eat this chocolate cake in front of me, I'll get this much pleasure, but this much pain in the long run, because obviously it's bad for you. If I don't learn accounting and finance the right way, it'll be pleasurable because I can be lazy and just like I was and not worry about understanding concepts. But the painful part is for the rest of your life, you'll never reach your full potential in business, as accounting and finance is the language of business. You got to learn that stuff. The same thing when it comes to being an introvert, which I used to be. And I feel your pain. I know what you're going through. I've been there, brother. If you don't force yourself to talk to other people and socialize at parties or at work, etc., yeah, it can be. You'll feel a little bit of pleasure because you won't feel uncomfortable. But the long-term ramifications are very, very painful. You have to run towards your fear. Same thing with presenting. A lot of people, they're fearful of presenting like I was for 8 million years. And they derive pleasure, this much pleasure, from avoiding uncomfortable situations to present. But it's a lifelong amount of pain, because if you can't present well and you don't learn how to do it, then you can't sell yourself, which means you can't get that job of your dreams, or you can't get that customer, or you can't get that perfect date. So the bottom line is you got to run to your fears in life, whether it's presenting, accounting, finance, etc. And I'm humbly here to help you every step of the way. Take your career to the next level. Run to your fears always, please. Now, in terms of finding a job, I would recommend humbly that you network like crazy. And if you're an introvert, this is going to feel uncomfortable at first. But once you set up your first couple informational meetings, it becomes second nature and it's fun and you enjoy it. Just condition yourself to enjoy things. When I went to go work at Goldman Sachs in my 20s, I was so damn scared, man. I was scared that if I speak, they'll know I'm dumb. If I don't say anything, they'll just think I'm dumb because I was so nervous. And then finally, I ran to my fear and I conquered it. I forced myself to network and do tons of informational meetings. And I narrowed it down to 3 things for me. All I wanted to do was meet people, have fun, and learn. And so if you change your perception, you can change your life. It's like the Rodin sculpture, I think, therefore I am. So we have to condition ourselves to enjoy aspects of business that we are fearful of. Now, when it comes to getting a job, just sending in your resume, it doesn't work anymore. Because whenever you see a job opening, there's thousands of other people that apply online. The person that gets the job quite often knows somebody on the inside. So what do? Well, you network aggressively using the concepts I teach in my MBA program and my complete job course. And you get a ton of informational meetings with people that work at the company you want to work at. And you bond with them initially during the meeting. Remember, always bond before business because relationships are more important than product knowledge. And then after you bond with them, you ask them if they can help you get that position in the firm. Then you give them your resume. It's just how it works. So business is about relationships first and product knowledge second always. And best of luck to you. And if the philosophies I talk about right now don't work for you, please let me know. You can always go to my website, harounventures.com, and then just download my free networking book. I promise you it helps. Yeah. Okay. Next up, I've got, hold on a second. All right, next up I got Demian, who is, he lives in Barcelona with his wonderful wife and daughter, and he's in my MBA program. Great guy. So Demian wrote, Dear Chris, good morning, and I hope you're well. Likewise. Okay. Would you please tell me your thoughts about Udemy's IPO and Starlink? How can we participate in them? Yeah. So when it comes to the Udemy IPO, I'm not going to be making any comments on this. Thank you. There's kind of a conflict of interest because I teach on the platform and it's just not fair for everybody. Yeah. In terms of Starlink, so Elon Musk created Starlink, which is basically a couple thousand satellites that are already in orbit that beam internet access to every country in the long run. Right now, there's only 14 countries that he's beaming satellite access to, and it's kind of expensive. It's $99 per month. And you also have to buy equipment, a special router, a satellite dish, etc. Now, we know that when it comes to technology products, the cost of computing drops materially. In fact, McKinsey back in the 1990s, they did this wonderful survey, and they published this report that stipulated that the component prices in all televisions, computers, etc., all component prices drop by 0.6% every single week. It's amazing. And so eventually Starlink, I think, will become close to free in the long run. The pricing point will go down. And a lot of countries are not going to allow Elon Musk to beam satellite access. But all they can do is kind of wave their fist at the sky, right? And the beautiful thing about Starlink is that everybody in the world at one point will be able to get unfiltered access to internet, right? So no more propaganda. Every country will get access to it, which is wonderful. And so in terms of how can you invest? Well, SpaceX, Elon Musk's company, of course, is going to spin off Starlink within the next 6 months or so into an IPO. And that's how you'll be able to invest in it. And the use of proceeds from the IPO is going to go towards, of course, building thousands and thousands of more low-orbiting, smaller satellites. And back in 2016, which feels like yesterday for me, I gave a TEDx talk on my vision of the world. and how access to free education online or discounted education online can solve every problem in the world. And part of my thesis was getting satellite access to internet for educational purposes. So check it out. Do a search on my name and my TEDx talk, because everything I talked about humbly is becoming true now. And what we're doing is we're actually using those satellites, or we will be soon, to actually power or provide internet access to the school that we're building in Magoo, Rwanda. And I plan on building a school every single year. And eventually I want to have a school in every country in the world. And all my profits I humbly make, and I've been doing well humbly. I want all of that to go towards building schools, and so I have nothing left for myself. After I pay my employees, of course, if they're watching. All right, next up, Demian said, do you consider that they can be profitable long-term investment? Yeah. If you're talking about Starlink, I think in the very, very long run, yes. Now, of course, they're going to be extraordinarily unprofitable for probably the first 5 or 10 years that they're a publicly traded company. And then eventually leverage kicks in and they'll be profitable like Tesla is now, and like Amazon is now, and many other internet companies that started out being unprofitable for the first 5 or 10 years. Okay, next up, Demian wrote, I'm currently at 27% mark in the MBA program. Thank you. I'm enjoying it a lot and learning thoroughly with all the incredible tools you provide. Thank you so much, man. I'm very, very humbled to hear that. Thank you. Okay, and I'm adding a lot more stuff too. So all this options concepts, topics, I'm going to be adding to the MBA program soon. It's going to be the longest version of the course. I'll also be releasing a shorter version of the course as well. And with my MBA program, which you get a 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. With the MBA program, I keep adding new stuff every year. It's always going to be current and up-to-date so that my students can reach their full potential in life. Now, if you're currently registered for the silver version of the MBA program, meaning the on-demand version, please check your inbox, because in the next few days, I'm going to be sending you information about how to upgrade for a cheaper pricing point to gold and platinum. Now, the next gold and platinum versions of my MBA program start this upcoming January. And if you want to learn more about it, what you can do is just go to my website, HarounEducation.com, and then click on About MBA Programs. And we have an unbelievable brand new state-of-the-art website that my team, Joey and Lionel, have been working very hard on. And that's going to go live next week. It's state-of-the-art. I'm really excited about it. I'm really proud of my team as well. Okay. All right. Next up, Demian wrote, I'm very excited about the portfolio management topics in the MBA program. Thank you. They come in handy. They're practical, and they're masterfully explained. God bless you, and a big hug from Barcelona. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it. Thank you. And I hope to meet you one day as well. And for anybody that's been a couple hundred people that have graduated from the gold and platinum version of the MBA program over the past couple of years, we're in year 2, we're going to year 3 next year. But if you graduated already, there's an annual alumni event for all of you. It's going to be December 18th here in the Bay Area. I rented a massive museum. It's going to be a blast. Bring your family. You should have got an email about that. If not, email support@harounventures.com. And thank you. And it's going to be an annual alumni, a networking event too, for my gold and platinum students. Yeah. All right. Next up, I got Rudy. Rudy, how are you, man? It's been a while. It's been several months. I recall about 2 years ago you started an insurance company. I hope it's going well for you. Yeah. So Rudy wrote, what's up, Chris? Hope you're doing good. Likewise. What do you think about AT&T stock? Is it a broken company or a broken stock? Yeah. And so what I love to do is I love to invest in companies that I love, where it's a broken stock, but not a broken company. And what that means is the stock is oversold. And the best time to buy is when the RSI is around 20 in your favorite long-term investments. I teach you much, much more about technical analysis, fundamental analysis, valuation, and more in the MBA program. In terms of AT&T, a lot of people that own it are value-oriented investors because there is a decent dividend yield. But I'm not a big fan of AT&T. Or other mobile companies, because I think in the long run, a lot of this technology when it comes to communicating with each other using voice is going to be replaced with using TICP or TCP/IP, which means the internet. Yeah, so I think once a tech company or a telecom company or anything future-oriented starts to go into secular decline, meaning they start to become a little bit less relevant, then it's a slippery slope and it's game over. Because turnarounds only work in technology maybe for 1 or 2 companies per decade. Like if the founder comes back, for example, like Steve Jobs did back in the 90s. But once the tech company starts becoming a little bit less relevant, okay, then it's game over. It really is, because turnarounds don't work. Now, if you're interested in learning a lot more about probably the best turnaround in the history of technology, there's a great book by the former CEO and McKinsey consultant of McKinsey and IBM, the former CEO of IBM, Lou Gerstner, called Who Says Elephants Can't Dance? And he turned IBM around back in the 1990s by getting rid of the PC market for them. They sold off Lenovo to a Chinese company. They took Lexmark public. They spun it off, the printer company, etc. And they just focused on software and services. Software has very high profit margins, and consulting services is a brilliant idea for a big tech company because it's a distribution channel to sell your products. Okay, next up I've got Andrew Wallace. Andrew, how are you, man? Hey, Chris and everyone else. I think it's great that you do these webcasts. Thank you. I appreciate it. We're in our 4th year of doing this now, man. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. And thank you all for being here. My students inspire me so much. Okay. Next up, I got Persona Non Grata, PNG, who said, do you know of any cryptocurrency comparison engines or selection engines by feature? Thankfully yours. Yeah, I would say that there's nothing really out there that I focus on. You can always go to any stock picking website and then just search on cryptocurrencies, enter the ticker -USD if you want US dollars, and compare the market caps, for example. But there's not much else you can see aside from that and technical analysis. Now, if you want to get a holistic, higher level perspective or view of cryptos, you can always go to coinmarketcap.com. And just here you can just sort by market cap, volume, circulating supply, etc. And Bitcoin is now at an all-time high because they're now part of an ETF that the U.S. government's approved, which is pretty exciting stuff. And to learn more about cryptocurrencies, you can always take my MBA program or take my cryptocurrency course, which is updated recently. Yeah. All right. Next up, and I teach you in the course of my MBA program and the crypto course how to do proper analysis of cryptocurrencies. Like I basically create for you in that course a massive S1 IPO document, but for each crypto you want to analyze. Yeah. All right. Next up, Thomas wrote, thanks, mate. You're most welcome. Good to see you, Thomas. All right. And Andrew's asking another question. I'm starting an app with 3 other people. That means that we each own 25%. Okay. We put in a lot of work, but what happens if down the road we realize we need to take on more partners? Yeah. So I would say if you need access to capital, take my MBA program because I teach you how to raise capital. In fact, in the 3rd of 4 semesters, I provide you with a pretty comprehensive venture capital boot camp, which is based on my experience working in the venture capital industry. And I never want you to use your own money. I don't want you to use a loan either, because banks are chicken. If you can't pay it back, they'll take everything. I want you to register your company, and I want you to approach high net worth investors so that you can be happy at home and not stressed out as well as you build your empire. And I teach you how to do this in much more detail in my MBA program. You can always go to my website, harounventures.com, to learn more. But at some point, you're going to have to decrease the percent you own of the company if you want to scale it. So there's 4 of you right now, and you each own 25%. But at some point, if you want to raise money, you're going to have to sell off part of the company. And I explain exactly how to do that in a lot of detail in my MBA degree program. Thank you. All right. Next up, Andrew wrote, how do you divide and decide how much investors get. Do you do it by shares or just offer a percentage with a partnership agreement? Yeah, and you're referring to people you work with as well as potential investors. Yeah. So always get a lawyer involved. You can go to LegalZoom.com, and it's a cheap way to get access to lawyers. I use them all the time. I'm not sponsored by anybody. I'm not going to make money if you go there and use LegalZoom. Please do that. In terms of divvying up the shares, what happens is lawyers will create an investment offering memorandum for you and your company, and they'll create what's called a cap table, the capitalization table. And they'll decide, with your approval, of course, what percent everybody gets. Now, if there's 4 of you and you all co-founded it, make it 25% each, like you mentioned there. But when it comes to the capitalization table, eventually you're going to have to dilute yourself to raise money. And almost all billionaires own well under 50% of their company. And they became billionaires by raising capital, which I teach in a lot of detail in my courses and my MBA program. Yeah. Okay. And if you want, what you can do is, if you want to learn how to make a term sheet. Now, a term sheet is something we use in the venture capital industry and many other industries as well, to help you understand what percent of the company to give to investors, etc. It's not a legally binding document, but I'll show you how to create one, okay, and then get a lawyer involved. So you go to WSGR.com, that's Wilson Sonsini Group. It's a law firm here in the Bay Area. I've used them, they're great. And you search for term sheet generator. Okay. And what happens is you go to their website. Here it is here. And they ask you a bunch of questions. It's free to use this. They ask you a bunch of questions. And then what happens is, after you've answered all the questions online, they create for you automatically a 10 to 15 page Word document that contains all the terms of the deal, hence the name term sheet, including dilution. Is it the ABC round? Do you have warrants? And also the capitalization table, the cap table. So if you go here, you'll be able to find it. Wilson Sonsini term sheet generator. Here it is right here. Okay. So the way it works is, and they do this as a free service, and they also do it because they want to upsell you as well to buy their other legal products, which you don't have to do because they're expensive, but they're good. So what happens is you go, of course, there's legalese here. I've read and understand the terms, which I don't. And then what happens is it'll ask you basic questions like the name of your company, what state or country is it registered in. A lot of people in America use Delaware because it's a lot cheaper, because when the founding fathers started this country, a lot of them were lawyers and a lot of them congregated in that area. But you'll be able to click through and create an entire term sheet. Now, last thing I'll say about that is, did it freeze on me? I think it froze on me. All right, give me 1 second, guys. Oh, frustrating. This happens. We're in year 4 and it froze on me. Okay. So what I'll do is, I guess I'll just talk in the corner here while hopefully it unfreezes. But what happens is when you approach somebody and get them to invest, the first thing that happens is a lawyer creates what's called a term sheet. And the term sheet is 10 to 15 pages or so. And after you and the other parties agree to the terms and you sign it, it's not legally binding, then you get lawyers involved. All right. Now, I don't know how to do Control-Alt-Delete on a computer here. Very, very frustrating. Apologize about this, guys. All right. So I'll go through the other questions, I guess, in mini mode. Yeah. Okay. And let me see what you guys are seeing here on the webcast on my other computer. All right. I'll just stay in the corner for a while. Why not? All right. Next question I've got here is, Andrew said, what if you don't want to give other employees or people you work with full percentage of the company? What else can you give them or offer them? And how do you do the shares? Yeah, do the shares through what I just mentioned here. In terms of what to offer them, obviously there's cash as well. And hopefully you can raise enough money to be able to pay them the same base salary they're making working for somebody else. And I want you to pay yourself as well the same base salary you make if you worked for somebody else. And you can do that if you raise enough money. And I teach you how to do that in my MBA program. All right. Next up, I've got Patrick, who said, please, sir, when I asked to discuss an M&A deal, you know what I'm going to do right now, guys? I'm so sorry about this. I'm going to have to do a hard reset of my computer here. Please stay with me. Okay, I'll be right back, and I'll type here. Okay, please stand by. Restarting computer. Thank you. Okay. All right, guys. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a hard reset on my computer here. And if you notice that you can't log back into this call, just look at the subject line. Okay, give me a minute or two. Look at the subject line of the YouTube live event, and you'll see another link you can copy and paste to. Okay, so give me a second again. I'm going to restart the computer. So sorry for this technical issue. It happens rarely, but occasionally. So again, I'm going to restart my computer, and I'm going to restart the webcast. Now, if you're watching the webcast and you notice that, hey, there's nothing left, it ended, then look at the subject of the webcast, meaning the title of the YouTube video, because what I'll do is I'll save there the new link for the webcast. So I've got to do a hard reset. This happens. I feel like Bill Gates. He used to always get the blue screen of death whenever he was doing a live demo with Windows. Give me a second. I'm going to do a hard reset. I'll go dark for a minute. All right, I think we're back. Goodness, can you believe this? Wow. All right, give me a second, guys. All right, good. I think we are good to go. Sorry about that, guys. Had to restart my computer, reinstall Wirecast, configure it. Sorry about that. My bad. All right, so where were we? And thank you all for your patience with me. It's tough doing these things live. No excuse, though. All right. Great. You hear me and you see me, right? Let me know if you see me. I think we're good to go. All right. Next up, I got a question from Patrick, who said, please, sir, when I'm asked to discuss a mergers and acquisitions deal, what are the key facts to discuss about the deal in summary? Yeah. So when companies buy other companies, it's either because from a qualitative perspective, they'd rather buy versus build their own technology. So there's a couple of things they have to look at. Number one, is the deal accretive or dilutive? And what that means is if it's accretive, it means that it makes the company's valuation look more attractive because the the company they're buying has high earnings relative to its valuation. Okay, so we look for accretion. Secondly, what we look for is we look for merger synergies, and we make sure that the company they bought fills a gap in the product portfolio. So, for example, the way that Oracle has grown over the years, Oracle is a big software company based here in California State. So Oracle's got a database product. They've also got a couple of other apps. And they found that they weren't very good at creating their own apps internally. And so they bought Siebel, which fills out their product portfolio, their platform. Siebel is like Salesforce, sort of. They bought PeopleSoft, which does HR-based software. They also bought Hyperion, which does business intelligence. They bought BEA, which does middleware, etc. And with all these deals, they did it because they had to buy versus build, because they didn't have the technology capabilities to create great products. So that's what they had to do. But what's dangerous about that is if you make a big deal and you're a big tech company, then investors love it because it looks like revenue goes up. But then 1 year later, it's a slippery slope because the year-over-year comparisons are tough. And the stock goes down a lot unless they do another big deal. And the financial engineer, the brainchild behind this, is Safra Katz from Oracle. She's amazing. She was an investment banker at DLJ for years. She knows how to do this perfectly. You got to make sure also that you have distribution channels in place to sell the product globally. That's why Coca-Cola bought Dasani water, because Coca-Cola's got distribution channels in every country, in every little corner store, etc. So even though Dasani looked expensive when they bought it, the deal was accretive for them. You also want to make sure there's a good cultural fit, because you know that one bad apple can destroy the corporate culture of an entire team, for example. So make sure the people are great, obviously. And then what happens is after the deal's announced, if the government approves it 6 months later or so, then there's a lot of redundancies. And so the company that made the acquisition has to let a lot of people go, because you don't need 2 CFOs. You don't need 2 CMOs. You don't need 2 CTOs, etc. So that's what I'd look at, yeah. And I do plenty of case studies in my MBA program about this. And I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm so sorry for the technical issues we had today. I'd like to say it won't happen again, but it happens at once a year or so. Yeah. All right. Next up, Matt Lacousse, who's my Chief Creative Officer, who is the genius behind the videography stuff here. He says, looking good. Thank you, brother. Good to have you. Matt's a partner in my firm. And without Matt, none of this would happen. And just so you know, all the technical issues were not Matt's issue. It was my problem, because I messed up the computer somehow. But these cameras, Matt, look great. And thank you, brother. I appreciate it and I love you, man. Your family. All right. Next up, Brian wrote, why does it look like your shelf is floating in space? Yeah. Well, Matt Lacousse, my Chief Creative Officer, his arm's getting tired because he's up in the rafters holding it down. Matt, I noticed it shaked a little bit a second ago. Don't let that happen again, okay? I'm just kidding. No, so what I've done actually is I have Matt set up this studio, and he put poles on the ceiling. It's awesome. So I'm hanging it from a pole up top. I thought I'd try something different. And last week, one of my students gave me great advice. He said, Chris, it's looking a little bit bland in the background. Can you do something about it? And so, you guys are the customer, you're the student. So I listened, yeah. All right. Next up, Kumaresan wrote, how do I find content for a blog? Yeah. So I would say that the way you become a thought leader and take your career to the next level is you think like a thought leader. It's like the Rodin sculpture, I think, therefore I am. And what you have to do is you have to be a prolific writer and vlogger of whatever it is you're most passionate about. And so for me, it's business education. So number one, you got to love doing it. Otherwise, you won't be able to do a half-decent job at it. Then what I would do is I'd be consistent. Like for me, for example, I'm consistently bad, but I vlog every single day. And I used to write an article every single week on LinkedIn. And what I actually did was eventually I turned all of my LinkedIn posts. Give me a second, guys, sorry. all my LinkedIn posts into a book. And you can always go to harounventures.com/writebook, all lowercase, and download my free book template. It's 6 inches by 9 inches. So you write once a week on LinkedIn, and you do it for 2 years. And after 2 years, you've got just over 100 chapters for your book. And I repurpose everything. And so the most effective way to do all the social media stuff is to repurpose, like Nintendo does. They repurpose all their older video games on new platforms. It's a way to work smarter, not harder. So, for example, this weekly webcast you're watching, and I'm sorry for the technical issues earlier, but this weekly webcast gets repurposed immediately into 7 vlogs for the week, as well as a bunch of tweets, LinkedIn posts, Instagram posts, etc. So the name of the game is repurposing content. But you gotta do what you love doing, and eventually, when you think like a thought leader, journalists, customers, companies might want to hire you, etc., will reach out to you over LinkedIn. I teach you how to be a prolific writer and how to write good stuff in my MBA program. Yeah. Next question is, how do you stop procrastinating? Yeah. So the best thing I recommend doing is to set up a daily schedule. And in my MBA program, in the first couple classes, I provide you with a daily a scheduler that will help you be 10 times more productive. I promise you it works. If you want to get something done, give it to a busy person. You can stay busy using my daily template. It works. And if anybody here, a bunch of people here are taking the program right now, if you can provide some feedback on how you use that daily scheduler, that'd be very helpful for myself and more importantly for Kumaresan, who asked the question here. Okay, next up, Kumaresan said, can you make courses in Tamil for Tamil people? Yeah, so my courses are, right now they're in 12 languages, but and they're all over the world. I have over 2 million people have taken my courses, or over 1 million have taken at least a couple of my courses, so to speak. And there's auto captions that have been added to almost all of them now, including Tamil as well. So you can check that out. Go to Udemy has done it as well on their website for all my courses. Thank you. All right, next up, Andrea said, how do you manage time, a job, a family, entrepreneurship, reading hours, learning hours, etc.? Yeah, it all comes down to daily scheduling. And so before I go to bed at night, I set my schedule for the next day. And I have a template and many templates for you in my MBA program to teach you how to do this to become much more productive. Right? The more busy you are, the more stuff you get done. You know what it's like when you're on vacation or you take a couple weeks off. For some reason, you couldn't find time to exercise. It's because you're not staying busy. My template process will help you stay busy and get a lot more done, I promise you. Check out my MBA program or my courses. If it doesn't work for you with my methodology, there's a 30-day, 100% money-back guarantee. Yeah. All right. All right, next up, and I'm so sorry about the problems today, guys, and thank you so much for sticking with me. We have 27 concurrent viewers after all this, so thank you. God bless you. All right, next up, Sushant wrote, hey, Chris, I wanted to know if you plan to create any course on product management and digital analytics, as this is something more startups are coming up with as job openings in India. Thanks in advance. You're most welcome. Yes. So what I'm doing next year is I'm adding several new courses and content to my MBA program. I'm going down the path of business analytics and artificial intelligence and programming. Yes, I'm going to be teaching programming as well. Yeah, I used to be a coder back in the 90s. I did a lot of object-oriented programming. I even used COBOL. That's how old I am, 8 million years ago. But I'm going to be adding that. And what I'm also doing is I'm adding I'm going to be releasing my complete options course very, very soon. And there's unbelievable analytics I built into it. In fact, there are several 100,000 complex formulas I've added to a number of spreadsheets that I hope you all enjoy, and I hope it makes you a better investor when it comes to options, longs, shorts, etc. Yeah, I'm going down the analytics path though. All right, next, Manas, how are you? Manas is from India. He said, good morning, my dear mentor. Hope all is well. The shirt is so cool. Thank you. Manas, I was thinking of you, brother, because I did this. I made it look a little bit more interesting for you because I remember your comment last week. So I'm going to start changing the backdrop a little bit more. And I listen closely to my students too. Like, for example, earlier this year, I got complaints about, number one, I mentioned my networking book too much, so I've stopped doing that as much. Number two, people said, Chris, you sound tired. And so what I did was I got rid of a chair. There's no chair in my office. I'm standing on my treadmill. I get my 20,000 steps in a day on this treadmill. But I do listen to my students. Thank you. And then Manas wrote that the shirt is so cool. The background is back. Yes. You said it looks cool. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. I did it because of you. You wrote, my mentor, Udemy changed its coupon policy coming in action from the 28th of October. Have you noticed that? Yeah, I got an email about it like all teachers have. I haven't really looked into it too much, although I do know that they're making several other improvements that are going to make it easier to send coupons to multiple courses at the same time. Yeah. All right. Sarthik said, hello, Chris. Sarthik, I hope you're doing well. Good to see you. Good to see you. Okay. Then we got Satyapal wrote, is the CFA important to become a fund or hedge manager in MBA? Should I do finance for the MBA? Yeah. So what I would say, the CFA, if people out there don't know what it is, it stands for Certified Financial Analyst, and it takes 3 years to get that designation. You write 3 exams at night over 3 years, and you study a lot. If you want to do it, and I've done level 1 years ago, I recommend going to eBay and do a search on Schweizer CFA books. It costs you $30 for a small number of books to learn everything, instead of paying $500 for the textbooks, which is a waste of money. I certainly respect the CFA a lot more than most traditional MBA schools. Yeah. And so does Wall Street. Yeah. Okay. Next up, and I teach all that CFA stuff in my MBA program as well. And now level 2 for the CFA, the second year, they do a lot more option stuff. And it's something I'm going to be teaching very, very soon as well. Coming out soon, before Black Friday, my options course. And if you're in my MBA program, it's going to be added to class number 89 as like a 30-hour elective. Yeah. Okay. All right. And Brian said, do we know factually that Starlink will be an IPO? Not yet. The way you can tell if a company is going public is if you go to sec.gov and you do a search on the company name and you see what's called an S1 filing. And when they publish the S1 filing, which is just a book that lists all the stuff about the company, risks, financials, management, etc. When you see that S1 filing drop, okay, when it hits sec.gov, then you know within 6 months that company is probably going to be going public. Okay, and sometimes you'll hear that the media break the news early, and for some reason the media is allowed to get access to insider information and not get penalized. And the way they do it is they'll say something like this. According to people familiar with the matter, Starlink is doing an IPO soon. That sort of thing. And more often than not, they're right. Now, the best sources for that sort of thing are the Wall Street Journal, especially their Heard on the Street column. The FT is great as well. Bloomberg is excellent as well. Yeah. And these journalists have a reputation as well, so they can't just spin stories or publish news that's not going to be factual. Yeah. All right. Next up, Manas wrote, my mentor, Chris, please. Did you get the shirt from the company? It looks nice on you, man. Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. I did. They mailed it to me. They're very nice to do it. Yeah. Yeah. And then Kevin, how are you? Kevin's one of my MBA students. He said, good day, Chris. Do you recommend buying the Bitcoin ETF now or waiting 60 days? And are we in the final stage of the bull market? A couple questions there. Yeah. So Bitcoin's at an all-time high. So I never buy anything at an all-time high. And the catalyst for it being an all-time high is because of this ETF. If you want to learn more about ETFs, go to etfdb.com. That's etfdatabase.com, where you can learn about thousands of different ETFs. Don't ever buy mutual funds because they're a scam and the fees are ridiculously high. Buy ETFs instead. The fees are lower and they outperform mutual funds. I would wait on Bitcoin because it's at an all-time high. Yeah. All right. In terms of, are we in the final stage of the bull market? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. And I remember years ago, I worked at a hedge fund. It was the largest tech hedge fund in the world. It was called Pequot. And Art Sandberg was the founder of the company. Great guy. God bless him. He passed away recently. But I remember years ago, I was pitching short ideas to him on Lennar, ticker LEN, and KBH. They're both home builders. And this was back in 06. And he said, what's your thesis? I said, well, they're overvalued. and the real estate market's going to crash eventually. And he stopped me very nicely, grandfatherly. And he said this. He said, son, I've learned in my many years of investing never to stand in the way of insanity. Markets peak, markets trough. You can't time it. It's impossible. And that's why you have to be a very, very long-term investor. You got to think 5, 10, 15 years out so you can stomach the volatility. And unlike most people, when stocks go on sale, you'll buy more instead of the opposite. As Warren Buffett said, the New York Stock Exchange is the only store in the world where consumers sell stuff when it goes on sale. It's impossible to call these peaks or troughs. And usually what causes a market to pull back materially is something called a black swan, which is the title of a great book by Nassim Taleb. And a black swan's a rare event. You don't see very many of them. And what happens is a black swan of an event causes the market to pull back. It can be something like 9/11 or COVID, etc. And that might be what causes the market to pull back. It might be something due to geopolitical concerns between Beijing and DC, whatever. So we just don't know at this point what's going to make the market pull back. You can't time it. You just got to be a long-term investor. Yeah. Okay, next up, hey, Hisham, how are you? Hisham used to work with me. He was one of my students when I taught in university here 8 million years ago. Great guy. Great guy. He took some time off, went to Pakistan, did some charity work. He now works at Amazon. I miss you, brother. I hope you're doing well. So Hisham wrote, good morning, Chris. Hope all's well. Likewise, brother. What GRE prep would you recommend? Thanks. Yeah. So the only prep courses I would recommend are the ones that are, whether it's the GMAT, the MCAT, the LSAT, or GRE. The only prep courses I'd ever recommend are made by Princeton Review. Okay. Princeton Review is owned by Kaplan, which is owned by the Washington Post, which is owned by Jeff Bezos now. Yeah. But I would take those courses. So Princeton Review. And when I took the GMAT 8 million years ago, I learned so much from the Princeton Review. And I did really, really well in the GMAT. And I suck at test taking. I'm not a smart guy. But the reason I did well is because the GMAT, like all these stupid tests, they're not intelligence tests at all. They're just how good are you at preparing for the little hacks here and there. So let me teach everybody really quickly a way to ace all of your multiple choice tests, okay, without studying. Okay, here we go. And what I'm about to say is going to shock you. But in order to do well on a test, a multiple choice test, you got to think like a lawyer. Why? Because lawyers can test everything. They argue about everything. For example, this is for my air conditioning. Okay. If one of the questions was this, what is the color of this air conditioning remote control? If the 4 answers are, it's always white. Okay. The other one is, it's always beige. The other one is, it's never red. And the other one is, it could be a shade of white. The answer that's correct is it could be the shade of white. The question, the answer of it's always white is wrong because if you look closely, it might be a little bit beige. The answer of it's always beige might be wrong because it might look white if you look closely. So the answer that's correct more often than not on these multiple choice questions are the wishy-washy ones. And I learned this from the Princeton Review. So the words always and never in an answer when it comes to multiple choice, that's never the correct answer. The correct answer are the wishy-washy ones, like it could be, or it might be, or on many occasions. And so I've gotten to the point where I can answer most multiple choice questions correctly without reading the question. Anybody can do it. Think like a lawyer. Eliminate any answers that's got the word always or never. And the answers that are usually correct are the ones that are wishy-washy, that contain may, or it could be, or on many occasions, that sort of thing. Think like a lawyer, and this is the only time you should think like a lawyer, and you'll do well in tests. Unless you're a civil rights lawyer, then I love you. All right, next up, Starlink said, Stuart, or you're telling someone, buy during VIX. Yeah, and I'm going to talk a lot about the VIX in my upcoming options course coming out soon. Yeah. The VIX is the one telltale signal on when to back up the truck and buy stocks or vice versa. And I'll teach you about that in the very first lesson in my upcoming complete options course. And if you're in the MBA program, it'll be added to class 89. Okay. All right, next up, Manas said, the cryptocurrency course is too good. Thank you. It's like a course ahead of its time. Your skills are so phenomenal. Thank you, brother. Your skills are so phenomenal that you can teach such complicated topics with ease and fun. That's raw, genuine talent. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. It came from many years of failure. Yeah. Yeah. But the way I like to teach is I like to use a lot of props. And so when I was at Columbia doing my MBA in finance 8 million years ago, I humbly got the top grade in my class in the options course I took. And I really get it. I kind of memorized stuff. It was bad the way I learned it. So I'm going to be teaching it in a much more visual way, brick by brick, so that by the end of my complete options course, it'll be second nature. It'll be easy to understand, and you'll have this incredible aha moment, and you'll understand why people make a fortune when it comes to options. Yeah. And I'm going to be using a lot of other props too. A lot of Coca-Cola props. That's one share of Coca-Cola right there. And whenever you buy an option, it's like buying a stock sometimes if it's a call. Except with a stock, you get to own one share. But with an option, if you buy a call, it acts like 100 shares. So you can make a lot of money if done right. And I'll teach you how to do it right as well. Yeah. Okay. All right, next up. And I'm trying to fix my posture. So what I'm wearing is, I'm wearing this thing here. It's called Upright Go. And it's made by this awesome Israeli company. And it's $60 on Amazon. And it vibrates whenever my posture is not great. I'm trying to improve it. And yes, you can improve your posture. And you'll notice here at the side angle, my posture is not that great. So whenever I lean over slightly, this thing buzzes. And the way it works is it's Bluetooth based, and it syncs with your iPhone or Android handset. And so you set it up so that if you lean over you lean over for more than a couple seconds, this will start buzzing. Yeah, so you can see here. See how I'm leaning over in this? Watch this. See? Yeah, it tracks it in real time. Yeah, and it buzzes. It's not painful though. Yeah. So anyway, trying to push the goalpost out and improve my posture. One of my many problems. Okay. All right. Next up, a PM wrote, salutations, Mr. Haroun. Chris, please. I have a couple of questions. Sure. First, if a person was interested in buying a company such as Universal Studios or Sony Entertainment, how would they acquire the company? Yeah. So the way it works is with most big companies, they hire investment bankers. Okay. So for example, let's say Google. Let's say Google wanted to buy Snapchat. Or actually, I'll use a real example. According to people familiar with the matter, PayPal is in late stage discussions to buy Pinterest. And their market cap's $40 billion. It's moronic. It makes no sense. But so if PayPal wants to buy Pinterest, it's really complicated to do it themselves. So it's kind of like when you go to trial, you hire lawyers to represent you. And so PayPal hired investment bankers, Goldman Sachs, for example, to do all the paperwork and to basically approach Pinterest and say, hey, PayPal wants to buy you. Are you interested? We're going to give you a 30% premium to your stock price right now. Do you want to sell? So that's how it works. And then PayPal has their own bankers, and Pinterest has their own other investment bankers. Say it's Morgan Stanley. And so the Goldman Sachs bankers speak on behalf of PayPal, and the Morgan Stanley investment bankers speak on behalf of Pinterest. And they negotiate a deal, and then it gets done. And they take a massive fee. It's just the way it works. Yeah. All right. But you got to also consider whether antitrust would allow a deal to go through. Now, Amazon would have made many more media acquisitions, but they're not doing it because they know that the government will block a lot of deals because they're just too powerful. Yeah. And Amazon is the only massive company that doesn't use many investment bankers. They have their own M&A department. Very rare. Okay. And then I see a question from Manas about the Udemy IPO. I can't comment on that, but I love you. Thank you. Okay, next up, Sasha wrote, how's your business structured? How many employees do you have? What's your largest expense? Thank you. Yeah. So the way I have it set up is I have it set up as an S corporation, so I don't have employees, right? For tax reasons, I set it up that way. I do have profit sharing, and I do have a partner in the firm. It's Matt Lacousse, and I have a wonderful company in Canada that does my sales and marketing, and they get a certain percentage as well, a decent percent, right? So it's a meritocracy. We all eat what we kill, so to speak. That sounded harsh, but you know what I'm getting at. Yeah. Okay. But I have contractors all over the place as well. Yeah. I outsource everything. But my team is amazing. And let me tell you about my team. They're great, really quickly here. So I've got Matt Lacousse, who's been with me since day one. He's amazing. I'm only saying this because I know you're watching now, Matt. Just kidding. So Matt's been with me since day one. And Matt used to be, he used to run a big golf company as well. He's a scratch golfer. He taught my kid golf. I met him within 30 seconds. I was like, oh my God, I got to work with this guy. Right. So he's a partner. He's been with me since day one. I've also got Doug, who lives in Canada, and he helps us with a lot of tech stuff. He's awesome. In addition, I've got a marketing team, Joe and Joey, and Lionel and Cassandra, and they all work together. They're great. They're also based in Canada. In fact, Joe and Joey were in town this week. I was meeting with them. It was great to meet them. They're family. Aside from that, I've also got John Clee. And John Clee, I met on this webcast in week number 10. He's based in Rochester. He helps me out a lot as well. He's awesome. Yeah. And I know I'm probably missing people, and I hope I've named everybody. There's a couple other people I outsource stuff to. Oh, Jean-Marco in Canada, who does my vlogs as well. He's great. Yeah, I've got a great team, and without them, none of this would be possible. Yeah, and I outsource a lot more stuff to other people as well. All right. But I automate a lot of stuff as well. So that's why we don't need as many employees to make this thing work. Yeah, sort of. All right. Next up, PM wrote, if a person wanted to acquire an entertainment franchise series, likely owned by a company, such as Superman, Spider-Man, or Halo, how would they acquire it? Yeah. So those are not independent entities. They'd have to actually buy just the brand itself. So, for example, if you want to buy the Spider-Man franchise, you'd have to actually approach Disney, who owns Marvel, and ask them if you can purchase that. There's no way they'd sell it. They might license it to you, but they wouldn't sell it. In terms of Halo, it's indirectly owned by a studio called Bungie, which Microsoft exclusively does work with. So you'd have to approach Bungie and Microsoft and ask them as well. Yeah. All right. Good morning, mighty men. How are you? Okay, and PM wrote also, can public domain properties help start entertainment businesses? Yeah, let me know what you mean by that in more detail, please. When it comes to the public domain and getting access to media for free, you can go to Wiki Commons, okay, do a search on Wiki Commons, and you can use any of their pictures royalty free. Yeah, read the fine print though. Next up, Ganesh said, hello, Chris. Hey. On previous weeks, you talked about the investment research, how to do that to get jobs in the field of finance. Where do you get the information for the qualitative and quantitative stuff? Yeah, I'm doing a special webcast on November 3rd. I'm doing a bunch of webcasts coming up where I'm going to teach you all of that. And if you're on my email list, you'll automatically get you'll get details in that event. If you want to get on my email list, go to my website, harounventures.com, and just download my ebook from my homepage. Yeah. All right. Next question is, what is your opinion of independent businesses and micro nations? Yeah. I don't know what micronations means even. Independent businesses. Well, yeah. You'd have to give me a little bit more details on that, please. But what I will say is when you start your own company, if it's successful, it's kind of like everything you buy costs you half as much. And the reason is because you get to write off a lot of stuff, right? So, and make sure you have a good accountant like I do, and I have a great tax lawyer as well. But if I were to buy a computer or a camera for, say, $1,000, well, if I buy it through my company, then that decreases the amount of taxes I pay, which is why it seems like you can get everything half price, so to speak. But of course, you have to have massive revenue to be able to do that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, Sasha wrote, "Are angel investors accredited investors, or do they use SPVs to fund startups?" Yeah. And then you got a couple more questions there. Yeah. It all depends. So whenever you start a hedge fund or a venture capital firm, for example, which I've done a couple times, in order to get investors to invest, they have to complete what are called subscription documents. And subscription documents, it's like 10 or 20 pages of questions to make sure that they have a minimum liquid net worth of $1 million, for example. And also there's AML stuff as well, anti-money laundering stuff you have to complete post the Patriot Act. It was added. So those subscription documents will be able to tell whether you are or are not an accredited investor. Not all angel investors are accredited because not all of them have a high liquid net worth. In terms of do they use SPVs to fund startups? Yeah, so SPV stands for Special Purpose Vehicle. And the way it works in the venture capital industry is as follows. If you invest in a venture capital fund, what happens is you're paying a 2% annual fee and a 20% incentive fee, meaning the venture capital firm gets to keep 20% of profits. Now, you pay 2 and 20 because the venture capital firm creates a diversified portfolio of many companies they invest in. If a venture capital firm wants to do a massive deal and they want to raise money for just a single company, then they'll do what's called an SPV, which is a special purpose vehicle. And the fees will be lower because you're just investing in one company. So instead of being 2 and 20, the fees, it'll be 1% and 10%. And so basically, and I've done this in the past as well with Palantir years ago when I worked in venture capital. So I raised a bunch of money and I set up a special purpose vehicle for people that wanted to invest in Palantir. And the fees were 1 and 10, meaning a 1% annual management fee and a 10% incentive fee. And when Palantir went public, then that's when we got the incentive. Yeah. Okay, I'm not an investor in Palantir right now. Only when it was private. Okay, next up, Mighty Men wrote, "Does your program teach how to invest in foreign exchange markets?" Yeah, I talk about a lot of foreign markets. I do talk about FX. I do talk about George Soros as well and how he broke the Bank of England and made $1 billion in one day shorting the pound. I talk about how he also did it in Thailand when he broke the Thai baht and made billions as well. So I do a lot of case studies, but I don't recommend investing in currencies itself, because the reason why currencies go up and down is because of geopolitical events that we just can't forecast. You know, like saber rattling between DC, for example, and Beijing, or between Moscow and DC, etc. Yeah. Okay. But I do talk a lot about hedging. All right, give me one second, guys. Sorry. Okay. Next up, E. Pronto, who's from Toronto. I remember that. That's where I'm from. Wrote, "Good morning, Chris. Good morning to you too. I hope all is well. Likewise." Okay. I just wanted to share with your audience a Netflix show called Startup. It gives a great perspective on crypto startups in different stages, starting with finding angel investors. Thank you. And I've checked it out as well. It's entertaining. Thanks. I'm almost done the Squid Games, man. I'm on episode 5 or 6 now. And they're long episodes, man. It's not like a half hour long. They're like an hour each. It's amazing. It's incredible. And that franchise, Squid Games, has added more than $1 billion to the market cap of Netflix as well. It's incredible. It's an overnight success. Amazing. All right. Although I don't know if Sony's that happy, man, because all the bad dudes in that show Squid Games, their masks look like one of the Sony characters from their controllers, the triangle, square, circle, and stuff. Yeah. All right. Next up, a PM wrote, "Have you sponsored or invested in people and or startups?" Yeah, I've invested in tons of startups. Yeah. But I have a policy with my company. I don't do it in my students' startups. Yeah, although I do promote my students a lot, and I'll continue to do that on my weekly webcast over time with their businesses. But it's a conflict of interest, yeah. Okay. Next up, Tomas wrote, "Any comments on Baito? Asia, China in the long run. Yeah, I don't really have any strong thoughts there. Sorry. And then, can you comment on Tesla's stock value? Do you think it's expensive? Why? Yeah, I think it's expensive, but expensive for a reason. And there's two camps of investors. There's growth investors and value investors. Value investors are like Warren Buffett. They like to buy stuff that's cheap, but not growing fast. Growth investors are people like me that like to buy expensive stocks that are growing fast. And so is Tesla expensive? Well, it's all relative. It's expensive on this year's earnings and next year's earnings. But I don't give a damn about this year's earnings or next year's earnings. I care about earnings in 10 or 15 years. And in my MBA program, I teach how to value companies based on your earnings estimates in 10 or 15 years. It's the best way to invest. Because if you invest that way, everyone is worried that certain stocks are 100 times earnings are expensive on this year's earnings and next year's earnings. But if you do your own research, and I teach you how, then in your mind, you think a stock like that is worth it's only valued at 3 or 4 times earnings based on your 10-year earnings estimates. I go into that in much more detail in my MBA program. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Olu Doton, how are you? Wrote, thank you, Prof. Glad to be here. Thank you. First time I've seen you. I hope you join us again. Thanks. All right. Next up, Mighty Man wrote, do you teach how to trade? Oh, same question you posted before. Yeah. Okay. Sharif said, we can read your lips, Chris. No worries. Oh, thank you. That's when I was having technical issues before. I was trying to do my best Marcel Marceau impression. Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, that guy was a hero, Marcel Marceau. I don't know if you guys know this. During World War II, he's one of the freedom fighters in Europe. He was awesome. Yeah. All right. Next up, Andrew wrote, thanks so much for all the info, Chris. I graduated from your MBA program 4 months ago. Congratulations. I've since gotten a job. Awesome. And started an app because of your influence. Very cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Music to my ears. Yeah. And if my students aren't successful, then I've failed. I'm not going to fail. Okay, and Andrew wrote, many thanks to you, and I hope to meet you one day. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. I appreciate it. And at some point, I'm going to be doing an annual alumni event as well for silver students all over the world. I'm going to travel all over the world and do these mini meetings. Yeah. I want to do what I'm doing from the road. Okay. And thank you, everybody, for your nice comments here about the technical issues and being patient. Yeah. All right. All right, next up, Manas wrote, my mentor, Clubhouse has updated and now music has been added to it. Do you think this will give Clubhouse the edge over the competition? Yeah. I don't know. I'm not a big fan. I think it's kind of on the decline. It might be MySpace. Yeah. And then Patrick wrote, thank you for the explanation, sir. You're most welcome. And thank you all for your patience with me today. Yeah. Okay. And then President Scroob, how are you? First time I've seen you on the call. I hope you join us again. President Scroob wrote, I'm so excited for the options course. Thank you. So am I. I can't wait till it comes out. I have so many props. I even go into detail on futures markets as well. And I discuss how big companies, they use future markets in order to buy grain. And I have this awful, I have to go there. It's terrible dad humor. Okay. Not really politically correct, but I don't care. Here I go. So this is here an example of a company, General Mills, ticker GIS, that uses a futures market to lock in the price of grain. And many years ago, this is from 2012. Thank you, eBay. This is from 2012. Michael Phelps, who won 8 million gold medals, was on the cover of Wheaties. And what happened was he actually got caught doing marijuana, which is now legal. And so Wheaties got him off the box. And so I think they should bring him back and put him on the box, except this time they should say, winners don't do drugs. Champions do. Sorry. Awful dad humor. That was the worst. Yeah. Okay. No, it's getting chilly in here, man. Give me 1 second. All right. Okay. I'm going to turn off the AC. All right. Next up, Mode wrote, good morning, Chris. Good morning to you too. Good to see you. Kumaresan wrote, Sir, Chris, please. Where do I learn Indian stock markets from scratch? Yeah. You can take my MBA program or any of my courses because I do teach all that stuff as well. I've invested a lot in India, not just the Sensex, which for those of you not familiar with the Sensex, it's like the S&P 500 for India. But I've also invested in a lot of cyclical companies there, Crompton and Greaves, which is an energy construction engineering company. I've invested in Satyam, Infosys, Wipro, etc. And so all this stuff I teach in my MBA program is applicable globally because I've invested in most major markets. Yeah. Okay. And then Kumaresan wrote, I'm reading Steve Jobs' biography. I'm amazed by his attitude. Yeah. I actually listened to the Walter Isaacson, Steve Jobs book on Audible. Okay. Now, in terms of what book and it's excellent, by the way, Isaacson's the best. In terms of what book I'm currently reading or audibling, so it's a great book called This Is How They Tell Us the World Ends. It's fantastic. It's not negative. I know it sounds negative, but it's not. It's about technology and people spying on us with technology and especially the Russian government, etc. And we got to be careful, man, because we have all these IoT or Internet of Things devices in our house. And if you don't have a firewall set up, you got to be careful. People will be monitoring you. And these things, I know it sounds crazy, but for more than a decade now, people can listen to you when this thing is even off. I know that sounds messed up, but just be careful with these things, please. And get a VPN. I have one at home here. And if your company gives you this, get another one if you have the budget. It looks just like it as well. Yeah. All right. And it's only a matter of time until somebody figures out how to hack into these things and take videos of you. So just be careful. Yeah. Okay. In terms of what books to listen to on Audible, that I just showed you the one I'm doing right now. I think anything Gary Vaynerchuk writes is worth listening to. He's great. He's the real deal. Take advice on social media from him and not me. Yeah. My dad taught me when I was younger. He said, Chris, only take advice from successful people. So listen to Gary V's audiobooks. He's great. Yeah. And I usually only like to listen to audiobooks that are actually read by the writer. And I listen to plenty of autobiographies as well. So whoever your heroes are in business, I want you to listen to their autobiographies if they have them. Yeah. Because what happens is very successful people, they got to where they are because they help other people on many occasions. And what happens is when they get a lot of success, they write a book and they share their blueprint for success. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. Okay, next up, Sushant wrote, hey, Chris, any free software or a way to do market research, consumer analysis, competitive analysis for a startup or a small business to prepare reports without hiring high-cost consulting firms? Thanks in advance. Yeah. So in my MBA program, I provide you with an insanely high number of templates, okay, or hours in your quiver, so to speak, or tools in your toolbox. So you can do a ton of investment research. Yeah, I provide you with all the tools. Yeah. Okay. Hey, Fred, how are you? Fred Mendoza. He's one of my platinum students this year. Great guy. He's an expert in options, and he's been helping me a lot with my upcoming options course as well. Good dude. He lives in the DC area. Great guy. My hair's getting a little messy here, man. I feel like that guy from The Sopranos. You know that guy that looks like this with the hair slicked back? Yeah. Should probably get a haircut soon, man. Good to see you, Fred. All right, next up, I got Harsh, who wrote, Chris, how are you? I'm always great, thank you. I hope you're doing well as well. And then Harsh wrote, please make a course on consulting and how to start a consulting company. Sure, yeah. I used to have one on Udemy years ago, but I actually took it down because the reviews were awful, and it just wasn't fair to leave it up there. But in my MBA program, I actually do teach you about a ton of consulting frameworks that you can use to analyze any company, including the SWOT analysis, the Boston Consulting Group matrix, the 5 forces model, and many other frameworks I created for you. And consulting firms, and I used to work at Accenture for 4 years, or Accenture, back in the 90s. consulting firms, what they do is they have a bunch of templates, right? It might be programming templates or qualitative templates, like the SWOT analysis. And they use those templates to analyze businesses. And you can use those templates during interviews as well as a crutch to fall back on. So for example, if somebody asks you a business question and they want you to analyze something, what you can do is you can say, sure, let me analyze this from a SWOT perspective: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I'll kick it off with the strengths. The strengths of the companies are blah, blah, blah. Moving on to the weaknesses are blah, blah, blah. The opportunities, lastly, the threats. And by using those transition words like moving on to, in terms of, and by using a framework like that, it buys you time to think of the answer, and it makes you look like you have a structured approach as well, which a lot of consulting firms do. In my MBA program, I provide you with a massive amount of templates, ones I've designed as well. Yeah. And there's over 100,000 consulting firms in the United States, right? It's a very fragmented industry. I teach you all that stuff in the program. Yeah. All right. Next up, Harsh wrote, how do you build self-discipline? Yeah. So I would think of everything in terms of risk reward, or as Tony Robbins says, and I've met him, he invests in one of my companies, great guy, by the way, or as Tony Robbins says, pain and pleasure. So when it comes to self-discipline, I want you to narrow everything down, like Tony Robbins says, to pain and pleasure. You know, for example, if I drink this glass of wine, or do this shot, whatever it is, or smoke marijuana, something awful like that, and I don't think it should be legal except for medicinal purposes. Sorry. But you got to tell yourself this: if I do that, it'll give me this much pleasure, but it'll give me this much pain. And if you do that with alcohol, drugs, food, for example, in the long run, you'll be in much better shape because it makes you long-term focused. And the longer the view, the wiser the intention. You know, if I eat this Krispy Kreme donut, I'll get this much pleasure, but this much pain in the long run. Everything is risk versus reward. Kind of like whenever I invest in stocks, I always look at the upside, the reward versus the risk. Obviously, the reward has to be higher than the risk in order for it to make sense. Yeah. And that's how you develop self-discipline. You also develop self-discipline by creating a daily schedule for the week, at least, not the weekends. And I teach you that in self-discipline and much, much more in the personal growth part of my MBA program. Yeah. We went back to two cameras here because I'm about to start recording my options course, and we're using multiple angles as well. And you always want to use multiple angles when you're recording a course in case you make a mistake. So I'm going to make a mistake. Pretend I'm teaching and I show you what I mean by this. So the best way to invest in options is you make sure you look at the stock. Oh, damn it. Then you switch over. You make sure you look at the stock or the option or whatever. You know what I'm getting at, right? And then what happens is my guy, Matt Lacousse, my chief creative officer and one of my best friends, he'll do the edit as well. I messed up the mess up there. I don't know if you caught that. Yeah. All right, next up, Sadiq wrote, hey, Chris, hey, man, how are you? I'm always great. Thank you. You said no question today, just came to say hi. Thank you, Sadiq. Great to see you, dude. Thank you. Okay. Mighty Men is next, who wrote, I purchased 3 of your courses and I love them. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, cool. And next week, we're releasing a brand new state-of-the-art website. It is unbelievable, and hats off to Lionel and Joey for putting it together. I can't wait to show it all to you guys. I'm tempted to show you the beta right now, but they'll get pissed off at me. Yeah, I've got the best people working with me. Rawlings, how are you? Rawlings is from Nigeria. He's one of my amazing MBA students, and he recently networked with Kemi, one of my other amazing Nigerian students who lives in Ottawa. Yeah, Ottawa is the capital of my beloved country, and Ottawa means meeting place. Yeah, unlike Toronto. So Toronto, but I got to do this. I'm so sorry, but the way they came up with the name of Toronto, which is where I'm from, is a bunch of British soldiers. You know, they came to Canada hundreds of years ago, and they were walking, and they walked into a tar pit, and one of the Brits said, "Look, Toronto." Okay. I am convinced if you have a British accent, you're smarter than me because you speak gooder than me. Yeah. All right. So Rawlings said, how are you today? I'm awesome. Thanks. I hope you're doing well, brother. I just came in to say hello to the HEV family. Hello to you as well. All right. Mr. Invisible wrote, hey, Chris, hope you're well. Likewise. What do you think about great resignation? I think people will prefer working from home right now and more flexible time. And most companies are still making money. Yeah. Well, I think what COVID has proved to the entire world is that if you work in the services business, you can work from home, or even development business, right? Manufacturing, obviously you can't. But there's no reason you have to go to the office 5 days a week. In fact, if COVID or if work from home was invented before office buildings, would we still go to offices? Not as often. And the whole process is moronic. You know, you commute 2 hours a day, spend a lot of time getting ready to leave the house. You drive a car, which is bad for the environment. Those 2 hours you're wasting hurts your health, hurts your family life, etc. So I think the whole notion of commuting every day to go to the office is moronic. I think maybe you can do occasional meetings once a month or so at an office. And you can save a lot of money as well doing that. And it's better for the environment and your family, etc. Yeah. So, and a lot of people actually are not going back to work. It's interesting. I had this incredible woman named Linda Nazareth, who's a writer for the Globe and Mail in Canada. I had her on my webcast a couple months ago. And she told me about this concept called YOLO. It's you only live once, YOLO. And so there's this whole new theme of people thinking to themselves, you only live once, given COVID and the health scares. I'm not going to go back to work. I'm going to work online. You know, I'm going to go to upwork.com or fiverr.com. That's FIVERR.com. And I'm going to start doing online work, you know, online gigs. I'm not going back to the office ever again. A lot of people are doing that. A lot. Yeah. And as awful as COVID has been, it's terrible. But with crisis comes opportunity. And there's the opportunity for people to work from home and start their own companies. And my kids, my three boys, they're back at they're all back at school now. But they had to actually stay home for over a year to learn. They're a bit older now. But you know what I'm going to put them up here. It's more important than a plant. But I think a lot of kids are going to look back on this era and say to themselves, you know, COVID wasn't all that bad. It was awful, obviously, but what happened was that was my opportunity to start my company. And my son, Matthew, he actually started, that looks good there. He actually started his own Twitch stream, and he actually made a ton of money. He did really well. Yeah. When life gives you lemon, you make lemonade, and God bless you, Colin Powell. Yeah. He passed away. He passed away from COVID complications, even though he got both shots. But his immunity was compromised because of cancer. God bless him. He'll be missed. Okay. All right. Next up, Alfred said, "Hey, sir, Chris, please. First time watching your live chat. Welcome, Alfred, and I hope you join us again." Okay. Do you think the U.S. government will seize money in retirement funds to pay public debts? No. There's too many checks and balances in place in the United States for that to happen. Yeah. And America is it's land of extremes, and a lot of the opinions piss me off. But sometimes I don't mind some of the opinions being extreme because it keeps the government in check, so to speak. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Justin wrote, what are your thoughts on creating an app as a way to start a business? Yeah. I would say if you're going to do that, do the freemium approach, right? Meaning give it away to everybody for free. And then once you get a large number of subscribers, then figure out some sort of upsell or in-app purchase, so to speak. Yeah. And for those of you that don't have much tech experience, you can always go to upwork.com or fiverr.com and get somebody to create an app for you. It's actually not that expensive. Yeah. But I think just surviving based on an app as the crux of your entire business model is problematic. And the reason I say that is because there's really not that much innovation when it comes to apps. And the top 10 apps that are sold or downloaded for free on the Google Store as well as on iTunes has been stagnant. It hasn't changed in a number of years. Yeah. I think an app should be used as part of your business model, for distribution, but not the only source. Yeah. Unless you raise a fortune from venture capital companies, and then you can just get big really fast and then monetize it later. If you build it, they will come. Yeah. It's all about subs. And nobody cares in venture capital land about how good your app is. What they care about is the number of subscribers. And I'll give you an example. So Evan Spiegel, who started Snapchat, he came to the Valley years ago, where I live, the Bay Area, try to raise money from venture capital firms. And he was explaining his business model. And the venture capitalists were like, I don't get it. Why would you take pictures of your kids and have them disappear? I don't want to lose my pictures. And then a couple of years later, he came back to Silicon Valley. And he said, remember me. I'd like to raise money. I've got 6 million subscribers now to Snapchat. And those same venture capitalists were like, oh my God, that's the best business model ever. And so all that matters is the number of subscribers. Yeah. And you need a lot of money to be able to do that if you want to survive without generating revenue for years and years and years, right? So you need capital to be able to grow your Snapchat, so to speak. All right, next up, Satya Pal wrote, thank you, sir, for the knowledgeable information. Thank you. Chris, please. Thank you. My pleasure. Moving on to Sadiq, who wrote Satyam, meaning it's an IT services consulting firm in India. He wrote Satyam. It was definitely one of the most liked companies and was growing really fast. However, the top management did what they shouldn't have, and Satyam has winded up. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the recent developments with Satya. Yeah. And then you wrote, although Infosys and Wipro are great Indian IT companies, they are. Yeah. I've invested in all of them over the years. Yeah. Give me one sec. Okay. All right. Next up, Nice Horse wrote, hi, Chris. Can you tell me what kinds of education levels people have that sign up for your courses? Thank you. We have all walks of life. We have people that are doctors, PhDs, the occasional lawyer, which is okay because they're my students. We have a lot of people that already have MBAs from top schools as well. And they humbly tell me that in the first month in my program, they learn way more stuff than they did in their entire $100,000 MBA program. And if you want, what you can do is just go to my website, harounventures.com. And when you're at harounventures.com, scroll down, you'll see a ton of testimonials from students. Yeah. And you can even go to LinkedIn, just do an advanced search and find graduates. I think we've got close to 400 people graduated that at least put it on their LinkedIn profile from the gold and platinum version of the course and silver as well. And just reach out to any of them you want in any country and ask them for the negatives and the positives. Yeah. But again, go to my website, harounventures.com, to see testimonials. Yeah. Okay. Next question, Sadiq wrote, what software are you using for streaming? Yeah, it's not very good, apparently, today. It's called Wirecast, and you pay for it, but it's identical to a free product you can all use called OBS. And OBS stands for Open Broadcasting Software. Yeah. Now, in order to do it, you need what's called a capture card to talk to your camera. Your camera you can't just plug HDMI into your computer and do it. You need a capture card to do it. And I'm happy to go into detail on which capture cards to get if you're interested. Okay, and in my MBA program, I teach you how to use Wirecast as an elective. I teach you how to use OBS as well. I teach you how to use OBS Streamlabs. And I also teach you how to use Twitch. Yes, I do a Twitch stream in my MBA program. Yeah. And as new technologies are created that are relevant to make you successful, I'll add them to the curriculum as well. And so with my kids here, my 3 sons, with my kids, the way they communicate with their friends hasn't been invented yet, right? When they start working. Similarly, their jobs have probably not been invented yet either. And I mentioned that the bottom line is because things change so fast in business that I want this MBA program to always be up to date. And I will be teaching programming as part of it, as part of electives as well. I've done a ton of coding in my life, and I love it. Yeah, it's fun. It's like a puzzle. All right. And we will be adding the metaverse to the Haroun Education Ventures MBA program eventually. And some of you have heard of the metaverse. And what the metaverse means is basically, it means Internet 3.0. It basically means a new way to communicate with each other over the internet, meaning augmented reality and virtual reality. And it's something that Facebook is looking into big time. And Facebook bought Oculus back in 2012 because of that. And all the major tech companies own their own VR products or AR products as well. You know, Google owns Magic Leap. Microsoft bought HoloLens. There's tons of them out there. And I think the next paradigm shift, so to speak, when it comes to internet technologies, meaning the metaverse, is going to be virtual reality or augmented reality-based communication with each other. Kind of like World of Warcraft. And I will be adding that to my MBA program as well. I'm a techie, I'm a programmer. I love that stuff. I'm going to push the envelope. Oot. That's how we say it. It's not out, Americans. It's oot. Canadian way. Canadian English rocks. But I'll be adding that eventually anyway. Yeah. And Facebook, I think they're about to rename themselves in the next couple of days or so. Kind of like Google did with Alphabet. Yeah. I still don't trust Facebook. I don't care what their name is. Okay. Sarlik wrote, hey, Chris, I don't know lately. I've been feeling just sad, not depressed though, you wrote. I started having nihilist thoughts lately. Feels like life, death, money doesn't matter anymore. I'm sorry you're feeling this way. Chris, did you hear it? Let me just, before I read the next part, let me just talk about that. Okay? So I find with myself that I actually get sad. Like I do have depression sometimes. I feel depressed sometimes. Yeah, I think we all do. I find that if I don't exercise a lot, then I feel kind of sad. And so my version of Prozac is underneath my desk here, I've got this really cheap treadmill. And I take about 20,000 steps a day. And I do it while I work. And I've got this desk that moves up and down here, right? So, and basically, I go 3.7 miles per hour all day long, and it stops squeaking after a while. I got WD-40. And I get all my work done this way as well. And I wear my Apple Watch in my pocket because it won't count steps if it's on my wrist. And I get tons of steps in. I've taken close to 15 million steps in this room in the past couple of years or so. Alexa, what's 20,000 times 365 times 2?
20,000 times 365 times 2 is 14.6 million.
Almost 15 million steps, right? So that's what I do. I walk all day long, I work, and I get a ton done. And the reason why it works for me is because your brain is wired in such a way that if you treat this well, this works much better. And so I feel like I just woke up all day long in terms of my productivity. And in the first hour of every single day, we get the best, the most productive work done. And it's because you're fresh. And if you have a treadmill in your office like I do, then what happens is all day long it feels like you just woke up. And you're way more productive. And as a result of me having this treadmill here, I feel like I get 100 hours of work done within 10 hours every day. And I'm much more productive that way. Now, another thing I do from a biohacking perspective to try to stay healthy is I drink this much water every day. And on the side, and these are cheap, you can get it from Amazon, it's got the time of the day. Right, so here's 7 a.m., then 9, all the way up until 7 p.m. or so. And so what I do is, this helps me a lot because we are 60% water. Try it, it's amazing. It works incredibly well. I also biohack a lot. I drink bulletproof coffee. I'm sure some of the stuff I do is placebo-based. But this helps me with my cognitive abilities big time. And I put a 1 scoop of organic grass-fed butter in here as well. And people have been doing this for hundreds and hundreds of years. Having butter in their tea or coffee actually tastes okay. And what it does, it gives you this incredible cognitive ability to think quickly. You are what you eat. And now that everybody's eating organic, you are what you eat eats. But here, every Sunday, I create 7 of these, one for each day. And there are 12 big bushels of kale in this, okay, in all 7. And I have my own blender, obviously, juicer. I put raw ginger root. I put every antioxidant you could possibly think of in here as well. I also take a ton of herbs and vitamins every single day as well. I had my DNA sequence years ago, and I found out that there's a high probability that I'm going to get age-related macular degeneration one day in my life, which means your eyesight goes down, which my grandfather had. And so you want to find out what illnesses people that are older than you in your extended family have had so that you can nip it in the bud, so to speak, so that it doesn't happen to you by taking vitamins or eating the right foods, drinking the right amount of liquid, exercise, etc. You know, it's like the movie Minority Report with Tom Cruise, where they had the pre-crime group. The pre-crime group determined what crimes you're going to commit later in life. It's kind of silly. It's the same thing with diet. That's like the pre-crime or pre-death group, so to speak, to the extent that you can nip in the bud right now any illnesses you might get by hacking your nutrition. And so your question there, you mentioned that you're starting to feel sad and depressed. I think if you alter your diet and you alter your exercise routine, you won't get depressed as quickly. It's true. And it might also be a reflection of who you hang out with. You know, if somebody brings you down, you know, get them out of your life. I don't care who they are. They don't deserve to be in your life. Okay. And Abhishek wrote, Chris, did you hear India, One Sun, One World, One Grid initiative will be good to invest in Indian green energy stocks? Yeah. I'm not aware of that policy, but I remember every single year I used to watch the State of the Union. Every January, the president of the United States would give a speech. And whatever initiatives they talked about were sectors I usually invested in, especially clean tech. Yeah. All right. I've not heard of that initiative in India. That's awesome, though. Very cool. All right, let me get a little bit of breakfast here. Okay. Sadiq said the Brits went everywhere. They named a couple cities in India as well. It's so interesting, dude, because when I go to England to visit, I go to a lot of towns there. I'm like, oh my God, we have the same town names in Canada. Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah. All right. But they do speak gooder than me. Next up, Anders wrote, hey, Chris, I hope you're doing well. Likewise. Can I ask you something? Yeah, sure, anything. How do you study effectively for foreign exchange and stock market diploma exams? Yeah. So the best time to study is the first hour of the day, or do it while you're exercising, like I showed you earlier today as well. Make sure you're in the right frame of mind, though, because if you're not in the right frame of mind, and if it feels like work and you don't enjoy it, you won't do well with it. But make sure when you learn that stuff, don't just memorize, try to understand it. Because if you understand it, then you'll enjoy it and you'll be good at it as well. And so with all equations, don't memorize them, rearrange them, and try to understand them. Like if assets equals liabilities plus equity, rearrange that formula so that assets minus liability equals equity. My equity consists of what I have in my possession minus who I owe money to. That sort of thing. Yeah. And for the rest of your life also, I want you to, when you look at equations, okay, or anything, or you divided something by something else, I want you to think of the denominator as being the number 1, okay, in all aspects of business and life. For example, the PE ratio means price divided by earnings. If we make the denominator 1, then that means for every $1 of earnings we have, how many times that $1 are investors paying for that stock? That's a PE. The same thing with profit margins. Profit margin means net income over revenue. Denominator, make it number 1. For every $1 in revenue you have, how many pennies are you making in profit? So if your profit margin is 30%, that means for every $1 in revenue you have on the denominator, you're making 30 cents. And I'm going to teach you all statistics from scratch as well, in a fun way with normal probability distribution, standard deviation, etc. in my upcoming options course. Because the way statistics is taught is so boring, but statistics is fascinating. And I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you everything from scratch. I'm even going to teach you how to use a Galton board, right? And this is just for normal probability. It's brilliant. It's unbelievable. If you understand that data is normally distributed, you can make a fortune in investments. I'm also going to do it with. We're going to analyze casinos in the options course as well, just a small part of it, and we're going to look at what's called Monte Carlo simulation. Stop spinning. Monte Carlo simulation. And if you think like a casino too when you're investing, especially in options, and you write options, right? And you do it carefully because you can lose a lot of money too if you don't do it right. And if you go for singles and doubles and not home runs, you can make a fortune as well. The big secret in options is the people that make a fortune are the ones that write the options, the ones that go for singles and doubles, not home runs. Yeah. Tons of props, as always. All right. Let me just get this out of the way here. Okay. Next up, I have got Kumaresan wrote, Sir, Chris, please. I'm going to be okay, don't worry. It's just one of my buckets fell over here of props. Let's see what fell out here. Still intact. I've got a bunch of these bottles as well. I went to the Coca-Cola Museum in Atlanta, and I'm using a ton of props as well in my options course to teach about how to trade Coke, etc. in a fun way. All right. Nothing was broken. Okay. All right. Next question is, Kumaresan wrote, my first year college starts on November 1st. Any advice for me, sir? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's really interesting when it comes to high school or college or a new company you work at. The friends you make in the first 2 weeks are your friends for life. It's just the way it works. And so in the first 2 weeks, when you start in November there, I want you to socialize as much as possible. You know, go to all the events and meet people, have fun, because that network is going to be the basis for your success in life. Yeah. Yeah. And for anybody starting at a new company, don't over prepare for day one, because the first couple of weeks anyway, you're just going to be basically going through orientation. And if it's your very first job, don't worry. They're not going to give you anything very, very high level initially anyway. Yeah. All right. Next up, Manas wrote, my mentor, you need to take down your ebook from your website. Amazon has a policy that any book live on marketplaces cannot be given out for free through other websites. I never knew this. A friend. No, I appreciate that. Thanks. I've taken almost everything down from Amazon. I took all my courses down from Amazon as well. Yeah. All gone. Yeah. Yeah. And I might take the rest of my books as well. Yeah. Thanks. Okay. Manas said, a friend informed me recently, so please look at it. I don't want anything to harm you anyway. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Amazon approached me a number of years ago, back in 2016. And they said, we're entering online education and we want to use you as our test case, you and Phil Ebner. And we're going to put your courses on our website. And at first I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm going to make a fortune. But Amazon, basically, they don't promote anything. Yeah. They're basically the everyday low prices company, like Walmart. So all my courses gone from Amazon. I'll never use them again. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, though. All right. Next up, hold on one second. Okay. And as I bent down, this thing is buzzing like crazy. So let me know my got to fix my posture here. Okay. All right. Next up, I have got here, Mathila wrote, hey, Chris, can you explain derivatives? You know, I've been searching for 3 hours, but I never found any clear information about derivatives that are easy to understand. Thank you. Yeah, I'll do that. Give me 1 second. Let me get another prop. The nutty professor is getting a prop here, which will explain everything. One sec. All right, I'm going to do something very dangerous right now. Okay. Here we go. Okay. All right. So I'm going to teach you all about derivatives now. So derivatives is a massive market in finance. And the global stock market cap, you take all stocks in the world, it's about $100 billion. If you look at derivatives, I'm sorry, it's 100 trillion. The derivatives market is $600 trillion. It's 6 times bigger than the stock market. And derivatives means the rate of change, right? Derive. And so you get value from derivatives based on the rate of change of other investments. One of the biggest components in derivatives is options. Okay, and options basically means making money based on the rate of change of stocks. Also within the derivatives market, there's something called swaps, okay, which basically means you make money based on the rate of change of fixed income instruments. There's also futures, which are like options, except people use it to lock in the price of something in the future, like oil. And so what I just explained there, all that stuff is under the umbrella called derivatives. Options is just one part of it. I opened an umbrella indoors. Probably bad luck, but that's okay. All right, I'll put that down over here. So hopefully that makes sense to you. I like to visualize things. I overdo everything, I know. But hopefully it makes sense to you. And remember calculus, derivatives. It's all about the rate of change. Okay. All right, next up I've got Sarthik, who wrote, I always feel free to talk in this webcast. Chris is my pen pal. Thank you. People want to be like Drake, Elon Musk, etc., but I want to be like Chris. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And Drake, he grew up not too far away from me in Canada. And all of his music makes it sound like he came from a tough background, but you know, he started out in the upper middle class and he made it big. Yeah. Thank you. And Elon Musk, actually, he went to school in Canada. He got into Waterloo, great engineering school in Canada. He decided not to go there because he wanted to meet more women, which is why he went to Queen's, which is a great university. Yeah. Thank you. God bless you. All right, next up, Sadiq wrote, I'm definitely interested, Chris. Please share how I can stream. What's a capture card? And which one to get. Also, I want to share my iPad screen. I want to use my Mac for streaming and use my iPad screen. Yeah. Let me explain this from scratch. All right, give me 1 second here. I'm going to have to tee this up. All right, so I'm going to go here to screen capture. Okay. And let me just do a new screen capture. And I will share this with you. Okay. So what I'm using right now is a product called Wirecast. And the way broadcast works is you have, this is the preview and this is live. So if I click here and then I click the next button here, I go live with this scene right here. Okay, so this here is Wirecast. So let me now go back to this screen here. And the way that software works, broadcasting software, it's all about layers, like Photoshop. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put another layer up top here, and I'm actually going to put my face in the corner. Okay, so I'm going to click on plus, and I'm going to go here to video capture, and I'm going to grab this one here, and I'll drag it down in the corner here. Right, it's pretty easy to use. So like this here. All right, so here we go. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to a browser, and I'll show you what equipment to get. So I'm going to go to Amazon here, and I'm going to show you the products that I recommend. Now, in order to stream like I am here, what you need to do is you need to buy a capture card. And the one I use is called Magewell, okay? And you can get one that goes in your computer if you want to use multiple cameras, which I think is overkill, or you can buy this product here. And this is the one I recommend. Okay, it's a bit pricey, but it works. So this one here, all you do is it comes with a blue cable and this box. This USB cable plugs into Mac or PC, doesn't matter. And this side here is the HDMI that goes into your camera. And then what you do is you then add a camera like I showed you. So if I wanted to add another angle here, I can go here and add this one here. So that's basically how it works. And then what you do is, in order to add audio, you click here and then you go add audio. And it recognizes all the audio devices connected directly to your computer, right? So that's basically how it works. That's it. And then you also have to tell it where to stream to. So you go to Output Settings, and then here in Output Settings, you select YouTube or whatever it is, right? So you can select LinkedIn, YouTube, and there's tons more in here as well. And so that's how it works. Now, the company that makes this product is called Telestream. Okay, it's Wirecast is the name of this product. But what you can also use if you want to is just do a search on OBS. Okay, Open Broadcasting Software, and you can download. Whoops, that's somebody advertising. You can actually download it for free, right? So OBS. There's OBS and there's Streamlabs OBS as well, but they're all free. And this is how Twitch works as well. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful. It works on Mac as well as on a PC. Yeah, it's buggy though sometimes, as you all saw earlier today. Okay. Next up, Starlink said, by the way, Chris, do you know programming? I do. Yeah, I do. I'm a nerd. I've coded a ton in my life. Yeah, so I'm going to be teaching about that as well. Yeah, and in the MBA program, I teach you about basic APIs and how to use them. Application programming interfaces, but I'm going to add more analytic stuff as well. Yeah, anything can help you be successful in business. And I think that AI, artificial intelligence based algorithms, are going to be used a lot in business going forward. I'm going to teach that stuff. Yeah. All right. Next up, Sadiq wrote, also, how do I soundproof my room? What's the cheapest possible solution? Yeah. So the best thing I recommend is make sure that there's a lot of furniture in your room. So when you go to an open house or go to an apartment you want to rent, if there's no furniture, you hear echoes. So make sure you have enough furniture, a couch, and a bunch of other things in the room. What you can also do, if you have a tight budget, is you can put up a curtain in front of you. Okay, like one of those cloth curtains. I get mine from Amazon for $20. And I use that in front of the door, in front of the window here to block out sound. But you can put that in front of you as well. Or you can put a towel on the wall and talk into the corner if you want to, if it's just audible. Or you can actually buy sound tiles, okay? And they're about $30. You get them on Amazon. It's a bunch of foam tiles you can put on the wall. Yeah. Don't put them on the ceiling unless you really reinforce them, because if you have a candle or something they fall, they could start a fire. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Oh, Julian, how are you? Julian is one of my amazing MBA graduates in my platinum program from last year. He's from Sofia, Bulgaria, but he and his son, Martin, and his wife, they live in Germany. Great guy. Yeah. Julian, good to see you, brother. And Julian actually asked me last year about options a lot. And I told him, dude, I got to add it to the curriculum. And Julian, it's going to be added to class 89. And I'll make sure that everybody gets an email to tell you exactly how to get it. For anybody that's bought the MBA program in the past or in the future, you get all updates forever for free. Yeah. So Julian wrote, hi, Chris. Hope all is good, and good evening from Germany. Good to see you. Guten Abend? Guten Nacht. That's right. Chris, what are your thoughts on the, about the Udemy IPO? I can't talk about it. I'm so sorry. Yeah. But I love you. All right. Oh, and by the way, so Julian has this great product he and his son, Martin, designed, and you guys should check it out. It's awesome. So what you do is you go to his website, which is grizzyware.com, and you can buy, and this is his son, Martin, here too. They made the company together. You can buy his Grizzy products, right? They're really, really cool. And I actually bought a couple of hoodies for my kids as well. They're awesome. Very cool. And he uses Shopify right here for the store. It costs you $29 a month, and they take care of all the commerce and all that stuff as well. And I hope your business is going well, brother. I miss you. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, Christoph wrote, you're talking to Starlink. Okay. All right. Next up, Pearl. Hey, Pearl, how are you? Pearl's in my MBA program. Great to see you. So Pearl wrote here, hey, Chris, thanks for this webcast. It's very therapeutic as much as it is eduformative. Thank you. And I feel so privileged to be in your MBA program. It's such a gift. And I feel privileged to have you as well. And thank you. Thank you, Pearl. You're a gem. Okay. Next up, Sardik wrote, you're talking to somebody else here. Okay. And whenever you guys talk to each other, and I encourage it, just put the @ symbol to whoever you're talking to, so I don't read it. Yeah. Okay. Hold on one second. Next up, Cora wrote, hi, Chris. Thank you for sharing your happiness with us. My pleasure. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. I just want to ask why the name MBA is not protected. So why you or Power MBA can't deliver diploma, but only certificate? Yeah. So MBA is the MBA for me stands for married but available. And no, I'm just kidding. This never comes off. I'm married to Christine forever. Yeah. So I've registered it myself. I own the trademark to many different versions of Haroun MBA, Haroun Education MBA, and all that stuff. And everything's been copyrighted to all my videos, content, everything. Yeah. Yeah. So nobody really owns it. Yeah. Yeah. In terms of accreditation, I'll never do it. Because what happens is when you do accreditation, what happens is you have a board that makes you cover really bureaucratic stuff so that you learn theory only and not real life practical stuff. And I've never wanted to do that. Never. It would be a massive disservice to my students. Yeah, it would hurt my students. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Mark, how are you? Mark goes by Satones. He's from Detroit. He's one of my amazing MBA students. I love him. He's awesome. He's very good with the options as well. So Mark wrote, where did you go to get your DNA sequence? Thanks, brother. Yeah. So I used 23andMe years ago. I think their business model has changed a bit right now. It cost me $100 to do it. But you can go to your doctor and ask them as well. Ask your doctor. Yeah. Abhishek, how are you? Abhishek wrote, what would you say about China's power outage for industry? Or you wrote POWE outage. Yeah, I'm not sure what that refers to. If it's China with respect to power in general, I think there are too many disgusting coal mines that belch filth into the sky. It's not a regulated industry there. And about 30% of all, turn the AC off here, about 30% of all pollution above the state of California, 25 to 30% is from mainland China because of coal. Yeah. If that's not the nature of your question, please let me know. Thank you. Okay, moving on to Sadiq. Actually, you're talking to Sardik there. Okay. All right, hold on a second, guys. Okay, and Nice Horse wrote, you're so funny. Thank you. Okay. And Julian wrote, what happened with Amazon, actually? Why did Jeff Bezos become the most hated CEO in the last year? Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really heard much about that. Now, when it comes to controversy and Jeff Bezos, there's a couple things. Number one, it's very hard to work at Amazon. If you stay 1.5 years there, that's basically lifetime employment. It's a tough place to work. And I have a lot of friends from business school that work there. It's hard. Also, Jeff Bezos, it looks like there was an audit of his taxes. And back in 2007, he was a billionaire then, of course. Not only did he not pay any taxes, but he also claimed $4,000 for each of his 4 kids as dependents on his tax return. And the problem with the tax code is that the 400 richest families in America, 400 billionaire families, they pay an average of 23% tax per year. But the highest tax bracket is close to 40% in America. And so very wealthy people pay little in tax. Warren Buffett pays next to nothing every year in taxes as well. On a normalized basis, he pays 0.5% every year. And the issue is this. When you pay taxes, right, if you're self-employed, it's based on how much money you've made, realized. And if I'm Jeff Bezos and I don't sell a single share of Amazon, then there's nothing to tax me on. And so I think the tax code has to change. It's not fair. It's not fair that the wealth gap is widening materially in America. I think there should be some sort of a tax based on assets once you pass a certain level, $1 billion, whatever it might be. Yeah. Okay. And even Peter Thiel, I mean, he's a genius, right? He's the best venture capitalist in history. He doesn't pay that much in taxes. And what Peter Thiel did, so in the United States, like in all countries, you have retirement savings programs, which means you can take up to 20K or whatever it is in different countries each year and put it in a tax-free account and let the money grow and never pay taxes till you take it out. Or what you can do is, in America, there's something called a Roth IRA. And what that means is every year you can put $6,000 into it and you pay taxes first. Then you put the money in. And then when it grows, you take it out, you don't pay tax. And you might want to do that if you think that your tax rate is going to be much higher later in life. And so what Peter Thiel did was he took his shares in PayPal, which he co-founded, as well as Palantir. And he put those shares into his IRA over the years, $6,000 worth. And now it's worth between $5 and $10 billion, and he never has to pay taxes on that. Yeah. But what happens with very wealthy people is they hire these tax accountants, okay, and these tax lawyers for like $1,000 per hour. And it certainly justifies the cost of what they pay because they don't really pay much in taxes. But the tax code is broken. It has to be fixed. Yeah. Especially for the uber wealthy. Yeah. Okay. Next time I got MT who wrote, I have horrible social skills. I often fail to adjust in groups and people start hating me after a few days of talks. Is there any solution? Yeah. No, I'm sorry you're going through that. Yeah. I would question why. Why do you feel that way? And I would tell yourself that you shouldn't care what other people think of you. Because as Dr. Seuss said, those who mind don't matter and those who matter don't mind. But I want you to get to the crux of why do you feel that way? And maybe your perception, I say it with love in my heart, maybe you're just wrong with your perception. Maybe you think they feel that way, but they actually don't. And you got to think like an elite athlete to the extent that when you're on the playing field, when you're out there in life, you don't have time or the bandwidth to care what other people think of you. And if you really focus on what other people think of you, and most of the time they're not, but if you really focus on what other people think of you, you'll never have time to reach your full potential in life. And all the most successful entrepreneurs on the planet, they never gave a damn what other people thought of them. Because they're usually early in an industry and people think they're crazy. Then they get some success and they're crazy geniuses. And eventually they're just a genius. I'm still in the crazy mode though. Yeah. But I think you got to tell yourself, I don't care what people think of me. I'm just going to be me. Yeah. And if you have additional questions based on that, let me know, please. Yeah. Yeah. But just don't worry about what the world thinks of you. You know, as Winston Churchill once said, I met a man who on his deathbed talked about all the worries he had in his life, none of which came true. And you can even tell yourself, you know, if I worry too much, I'm questioning my faith, you know, because God already knows what's going to happen when it comes to your career. So that should put you at ease. Let it go. Okay. Getting hungry, man. All right. And thank you all for sticking with me today, despite all the technical issues I had early on. Okay. All right. Next up, Manas wrote, thank you for everything, my mentor. God bless you and your entire family forever. See you next week and forever and ever. Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for all the wonderful icons. Thank you. Moving on to Anurag, who wrote, hey, Chris, greetings. How are you? With your experience working in investments, does your job involve reading lots of annual reports of companies? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And don't get intimidated by that stuff. And the best way to do research on companies is always to go to investor relations. Okay, so every big company in the world has their own investor relations department. So Coca-Cola, investor relations. You can do this for all companies. And when you go to the website, it'll teach you all about the company, including the annual report. And there's something wonderful called Regulation FD, which stands for Fair Disclosure. And what that means is no company in the world is allowed to give financial information to any big fund before they give it to you. So everything is available for free at the exact same time online. And so you can listen to webcasts, you can read up on companies here, read all their press releases, etc. Right? Quarterly results here. And then what you can also do is you can get the annual report right here. Okay. Review the report or a 10K. Now the 10K is just accounting nerd talk for the annual report. Okay. Or you can click here to see a more colorful version of the 10K. Right. So here's what it looks like. Much easier to read. Coca-Cola is so damn good at marketing. Right. And all this stuff here is basically the 10K, but it looks prettier here. But if you want to read the actual 10K, you can click here to read it. Okay. And it's just a bunch of text stuff here. And then here you can always click and get immediate access to what is the company, what are their risks, what are their financial statements, what's the executive compensation, etc. Now, if you can't find the 10K at their website, you can always go to sec.gov, which is the Securities and Exchange Commission. And then you click here on more search options and you enter in the ticker. So for Coke, the ticker is KO. And then what you do is you can find the 10K here. Okay. And an 8K means an important press release. A 10Q means a quarterly release. And you can just do a search here for 10-K. And you can read all the 10Ks going back to 1994, okay, for all companies. And you click here, documents, and it's the exact same thing I just showed you. But here it is here. Yeah. So anyway, and don't let the financial babble intimidate you, because I teach all this stuff from scratch in my MBA degree program as well. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, Mark, who's in my MBA program, wrote, "Hey brother, is it a good idea to sell a losing stock position to offset taxes? Thanks." You're most welcome. Yeah. It's hard, man. So what I recommend, and I teach this in the MBA program, is you do at least a one-page write-up on all your stocks before you buy them. And after you finish that one-pager, put it aside. And let's say a year or two later, the stock is down and you want to sell it. What I want you to do 2 years from now, when the stock is down, you want to sell it, is I want you to go back to that one-pager and think to yourself, okay, the stock is down. And it's down because of a couple of reasons that I didn't account for in my one-pager. And had I known about those reasons why the stock is down when I wrote this one-pager 2 years ago, would I still have bought the stock? And if the answer is no, sell it, move on. If the answer is yes, then buy more if it's not a full position. Yeah. Now, in terms of tax reasons, I would sell it for tax reasons only if, when you read that one-pager, you tell yourself, in hindsight, I shouldn't have bought the stock. Okay. All right. Thank you for that comment, Julia. Yeah. Okay. Marcos wrote, "Hey, Chris, classic cunning, but lazy here. Best business books on having high output without putting too much input, like the Barbarians of Y Combinator." Yeah. So what are the books? Yeah. I would say to learn the tricks on how to be more efficient in life and to basically optimize your career, the best thing to do is just listen to autobiographies on audible.com from very successful business people. They'll tell you their blueprint for success. And of course, in my MBA program, I provide you with a ton of arrows in your quiver or tools in your toolbox and templates, etc., so that you can get stuff done faster. So I can humbly help you work smarter, not harder. Okay. And then CSS said, what's the ticker for the crypto ETF? I actually don't know what it is. Let's find out together. So let's go and just do a quick search. We can probably go to maybe it's in Yahoo Finance. So I'll just type up Bitcoin ETF. That's you're referring to, right? Purpose Bitcoin ETF. There's plenty of them in Toronto here. I'm not sure which one. This is just Toronto right here. So I guess what we can do is let's do a search here on Bitcoin ETF ticker. All right, let's see here. And it's going to be news related. Okay, here it is. The first Bitcoin ETF starts selling. All right, let's see the name of the ticker here. Here it is, a ProShares Bitcoin ETF. Began trading at $40. Let's check it out here. All right, here it is here. I still don't see the ticker. Give me a second. I don't even know, man. Let's see. Let me go to another news release here. I'll do it really quick. Let's see here. Yada, yada, yada. Oh, here it is. Baito. All right. Somebody asked about Baito before, and I'm embarrassed to say, I was like, I don't know what Baito is, but it's the cryptocurrency ticker here. Okay. ProShares Trust ETF. Here we go. All right. So it started trading. Before you invest in any ETF, we go to the profile to find out what the fees are always. All right. Let's see the fees. I don't know why it's here. Oh, expense ratio, not available yet. So I will go right to the source to find out what the fees are. Okay, profile, summary, ProShares Trust. And let me go here to find out more details on this so we can actually get the fee structure. Paste. And let me go here. Here it is, ETF, Bitcoin Strategy ETF, which is offered by ProShares. All right, let me see if I can find the expense ratio. Here it is. Okay. Oh, it's kind of a high expense ratio, very high actually. So the expense ratio is 0.95%. What that means is if you put in $100 into this ETF, every year you're going to pay 95 cents in fees. Yeah, that's pretty high for an ETF fee actually. You know, most ETFs have a fee well under 0.5%. Yeah, so if you want to do more research on it, you can actually go here and read what's called a prospectus, which is like an S1 document or investment offering memorandum. And so you can read through this to find out what all the risks are, etc. Yeah, and the objectives of the fund, all that stuff. And here's more details on the annual fee, etc. Okay. Cool. All right, Baito. To answer your question, Baito. Abigail, hey Abigail, wrote, "What is your net worth, Chris? If you don't mind, of course. It's pretty small. Yeah. All right. My network is my net worth. How's that?" Sadiq said, "Chris, if I buy your MBA program, then do I need to buy your other courses, or does it have everything I need? Just buy the MBA. You're good to go." Yeah. And yes, it does cover some of the concepts in other courses, but it's all brand new with brand new props in much more detail with a lot more frameworks as well. Yeah. All right. Next up, Mighty Man wrote, "Will there be a sale on your MBA program? It's $1,000. It's outside of my budget." Yeah. Yeah. My marketing folks, I'd have to talk to them about that. We are raising prices on everything though, like all my individual courses and everything. We're going to price them properly. Yeah, and you'll see that will be coming out in the next week or so on my website. I have a ton of other products coming out in a few days as well. You'll see. Yeah. Okay. Next up, MT wrote, "How rich poor gap affects in reality, even when money is just a paper. How it affects assets. Rich people might not suddenly start eating food of hundreds of people." Yeah. Let me think about that. Yeah, give me an example of what you mean. A little bit more detail. I'm so sorry. Because I want to humbly answer the question to the best of my capabilities. Thanks. All right, next up we got Darren, who wrote, "I got your Udemy financial analyst training. I'm stronger in qualitative analysis. If quantitative analysis isn't my strength, can I outsource valuation price targets by using analyst consensus average price targets? Yeah, no. And I say this with love in my heart. You always have to do your own research. You can't outsource anything when it comes to investment research. Don't ever rely on anybody to tell you what to buy or not to buy. Always do your own research. And in my MBA program, I provide you with all the tools as well. And in that course, I provide you with some tools as well that should help out a lot. But you should be able to create your own financial model based on what I teach in my courses in my MBA program. If you have any questions, just ask in the courses and my team will answer you pretty quickly. Thanks. Okay. And in my options course, I'm going to be teaching you how to value options as well using 3 different valuation methodologies with a lot of props. And those valuation methodologies I'm teaching from scratch are as follows. Number 1, the binomial pricing theorem. Number 2, Black-Scholes. And number 3, Monte Carlo simulation. I'll be teaching all that from scratch. I never love relying on just one way to value a company. I like to look at multiple ways, always. Okay. All right, next up, I've got... Okay, Alex, and if I miss any questions, paste it again, please. And by the way, if you guys put in hyperlinks into your questions, for some crazy reason, it's moronic, but YouTube strips them out. Yeah. Okay, Alex wrote, Chris, hypothetically speaking, if Bitcoin was to be the new currency exchange to use, and normal fiat or paper-based currencies were eliminated in all countries, which country would be the most prepared to use it? Well, probably El Salvador, because they're doing a big test project, which I think is a little bit fiscally irresponsible, on replacing their currency with Bitcoin. Yeah. Okay. And next up, Sadiq wrote, I read somewhere that we often suffer more in imagination than reality. It's so true. It's so true. Most of our worries are self-inflicted. It's true. And then you wrote, this quote really touched my heart when I first read it. I just wanted to share for those who are going through tough situations. God bless you for that, Sadiq. I love it. Let me read that again. We often suffer more in imagination than reality. It's true. It's true. Things are never as bad as they seem. Always. Yeah. Yeah. And Dale Carnegie, who's had a tremendous influence on me, probably more so than any other motivational speaker or writer, he wrote a great book you should read. It's called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And what Dale Carnegie does is he talks about living in what are called day-tight compartments, meaning don't worry about the past. You can't control it. Don't focus too much on the future. Just focus on today and enjoy every day. And for those of you that are newly married and you have kids, enjoy every second, man, because before you know it, they're going to be gone, right? They'll grow up and leave the house. And by the time your child is 12 years old, you've already spent 90% of the time you'll ever spend with them. It's true. It's crazy. And so if you're out there walking your baby, okay, in a stroller, and I've been there, and an older person, man or woman, looks at you and smiles, they're saying, enjoy this. So I remember I used to walk my kids in the double stroller. I have Irish twins, or these two here are 15 months apart. And I remember it was stressful sometimes, you know. I enjoy them, obviously. And people would often look at me as I was walking my kids and smile while I look a little bit stressed out. Just enjoy every second and count your blessings. And for me, every day before I get out of bed, I thank God for 10 things in this order. Andrew, Matthew, Dylan, Christine, my wife, my mom, my dad, my brother, Jamie, my sister, Katie, my sister, Elizabeth, and you, my students. Appreciate what you have. Practice gratitude daily before you get out of bed. All right, get a little bit of coffee. All right, and Mark, who's based in Detroit, one of my MBA students, good dude, he wrote, I have a friend who's required to take $6,000 out of their IRA every year, or they get penalized. Is it because they're over the retirement age? It could be. It could be. I'm not sure. I know that you're allowed to redeem with fewer penalties from a lot of retirement savings accounts after you reach a certain age. Yeah, but I'm not sure why that's the point. Yeah. Okay. Next up, MT wrote, I sometimes become hyper after being friendly, and that causes problems after some time. Plus, I even lack a good humor in social group, which makes me vulnerable, I feel. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know the right answer for that. I love you, and I feel your pain you're going through. I've been there. It might be because, like, you got to ask yourself why you feel that way. And if part of it is because you care what other people think of you, then what I would do is I'd kind of condition yourself to not give a damn what others think of you. Yeah. If that's the case, it might be another reason that I'm just not professionally equipped to help with. I don't know. Yeah. But I love you. All right. Next up, Brian wrote, hello, Chris. Does it only apply for publicly traded companies? And that's a follow-up question. I'm not sure what you're asking about. Maybe it's with respect to annual reports and that sort of thing. But before investing in any company, private or public, you should be able to get access to an investment offering memorandum. Okay? And if you don't get one for a private company, if they don't have it, then don't invest. Yeah. Next up, Christoph wrote, well, it's been, pardon me. It's been a year now since I was thinking it's Trump's destiny to get into the social media sector. Yeah, I saw the news this morning too. You wrote, well, he just launched a social media platform called Truth Social. It could get interesting. Yeah. And I think what he's doing, he's probably gearing up to run for re-election. And he needs some sort of platform to be able to articulate his thoughts. Yeah. Yeah, and he certainly understands how to use the media. Yeah. Okay. And then Christoph wrote, starting November 30th, Canadians cannot fly without their vaccine passport. Are we sure this is about health? Doesn't anyone know history and how these developments never end well? Yeah. And what really, I'm vaccinated, but what really kills me is how a lot of countries, a lot of civil liberties are being taken away because of COVID. And I do worry that after COVID is done, I worry we don't get these liberties back. And my favorite license plate in the world is a license plate of the great state of New Hampshire. And on the license plate, it says, live free or die. Yes, it's extreme, but sometimes we have to be extreme in our thought process and what we say in order to maintain our civil liberties. And I am very worried that in many countries, we're not going to get them back. And I have students in every country in the world. And I do a lot of one-on-one sessions in my Platinum program with my students. And many of them have told me that their liberties have been taken away. And when they go outdoors, past curfew, they get beaten in many countries. It's crazy. And it's not fair. Yeah. And thank God we're all journalists. We all have these things in our pocket, right? So that if something happens to us, whatever, or friends around you that are being unfairly treated by police, whatever it might be, you can always share it with the world. Yeah. Yeah. Myron, how are you? Myron is one of my amazing MBA students. She's originally from Kenya, and we're building a school in honor of her wonderful, beautiful mother. The Leah Koro School in Kenya next year. Marin also has 2 great companies that she started, and I won't talk about them until you let me, but there's one in particular that I can't wait until you launch it because I'm going to market the heck out of it on this weekly call. Yeah, and you inspire me so much, sister. So Marin wrote, Chris, and all the templates you provide on management and delegation and daily planning are awesome. They help me achieve more. The MBA is changing my life. Thank you. I'm so glad you're enjoying it. Thank you. And I love the little cross you have on the back of your wall there that your mom put on the wall many, many years ago. Yeah. Next up, Julian wrote, when you invest in a newly traded company, is it always better to wait for 6 months approximately until the early investors sell their stocks. It all depends. So what happens is this. When you're an insider at a company and you own shares, or say you worked at a company for years and you have shares, and the company goes public, you can't sell for 6 months. And the reason is because if you could sell on day one, everybody'd be selling and the IPO would go down very, very fast. And so they wait 6 months, and they wait 6 months on purpose, because what happens is after the IPO, company goes public, hopefully the stock goes up. And then 30 days after the IPO, what happens is this. 30 days after the IPO, the investment bankers that took the company public, their research analysts will initiate coverage with a buy rating or neutral rating. Yeah, never sell. And basically they'll support the stock over time, although there's supposed to be a Chinese wall separating banking from trading and equity research. And so the stock will stabilize that way as well, because the marketplace will understand the company better, because these sell-side analysts at the big investment banks will issue their coverage and research reports and initiation reports and quarterly reports on these companies. But usually what happens, yes, the stock does go down 6 months after, in many cases, right? It's tough to game the system, though, using game theory. And for me, for example, when I used to work in venture capital, when I received shares in a company, right, when we harvested the investment, meaning when it went public, I wasn't allowed to sell for 6 months. But a massive percent of my net worth was in those stocks. So I didn't give a damn how good that company is. I'd be selling after 6 months. I have to. Otherwise, it's fiscally irresponsible for me not to do so. Yeah. Okay. But what I used to short, when I worked in the hedge fund industry, I used to short stocks into the lockup 6 months out, and then I'd cover and go long, especially if I was a long-term believer in the company. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Myron. Appreciate that. God bless you. Okay. Next up, CSS said, yeah. Hey, Chris, I was the first time asked something on live. Thank you for the answer. You're most welcome. Bido. Yeah, thank you for the question, too. And, dude, I learned so much based on the questions my students ask. Yeah. It's kind of embarrassing. I created a crypto course, and I didn't know the ticker for the ETF. Bito. Now I know. Thank you. Oh, the fees are ridiculously high at 0.95%. That's a little bit high. Okay. Next up, MT wrote, and give me 1 second here. Jumps on me sometimes. Yeah, MT wrote, well, actually, do rich poor gap really matter when rich people don't spend money? It won't matter, as money is just paper in some banks. It's the resources which matter. Then don't you think it doesn't matter? Yeah, it's tough because the way that the tax code is set up is it doesn't matter how wealthy you are. You pay taxes based on how much money you make. And making money when you're really wealthy, it's all relative, right? You have to actually sell something and realize a profit before you pay taxes. Yeah. So it's kind of an elusive concept. Yeah. But I do think the tax code should be changed so that if you're a billionaire or worth an insane amount of money, every year you have to pay a certain amount. You have to, because it's tragic that the gap between the haves and the have-nothings is getting wider and wider and wider. It's not fair. Yeah. And I am a capitalist, absolutely, but up to a certain point. All right, Sadiq wrote, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I read it and it affected me big time. I really love this book. Me too. And then you wrote, Dale Carnegie really has a great impact on me and how I talk to people now. Absolutely. He's amazing, dude. He's incredible. And Warren Buffett actually was terrified of public speaking. And when he was younger, he took a course, the Dale Carnegie public speaking course. And on his wall, he does not have his degree from Columbia University. On his wall, he has a certificate of completion for the Dale Carnegie course. And he said publicly that had he not learned how to speak to people effectively through Dale Carnegie's teachings, he wouldn't be nearly as successful as he is today. And Warren Buffett is such a great communicator because of what he learned from Dale Carnegie. And you never watch an interview with Dale Carnegie on television, and after it's done, you never say to yourself, I'm confused. He's a quintessential communicator. And he learned that through practice. and through the Dale Carnegie course and Dale Carnegie's book. And I recommend everybody read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, because without that book, none of these other self-help gurus would exist today, or they wouldn't be nearly as successful. And Dale Carnegie wrote that book back in the 1930s. And human nature hasn't really changed since then. And I recommend going to audible.com and downloading the book right now, if you haven't already done so, and just listen to it. It's timeless. Yeah. Okay. And then Seek said, likewise, and thanks, Chris, for the kind words. You're most welcome. Thank you for being here. Okay. Rashampreet wrote, Sir, how can I be a venture capitalist? Yeah. So what I recommend if you want to go into VC is start at least one or two companies first. And it doesn't matter if you're incredibly successful or not. It'll help you a lot. And the reason is because when you go to work in venture capital and you're competing and fighting against other venture capital firms to win a deal, the founder of the company will choose you and your firm based on your past experience. Because what happens is this. When a venture capital firm invests in a startup, you get a board seat. And when you sit on the board, you offer advice, if asked, by the founder of the company. And I always view myself, and I've been on tons of boards, but I always view myself as, when I'm on the board, as a prosthetic extension of the management team. And my goal as a board member, and I'm very competitive, and I fight for my students and my companies that I invest in. My goal as a board member is to get the first call from the CEO when she or he needs help. And my specialty always when it comes to being on boards is helping with sales and finding customers, that sort of thing. And anything else I'm asked to do to help with. Yeah. All right. Next up, Stephen wrote, Media PBS, CNN, Wall Street Journal, they keep saying 4.3 million Americans are quitting jobs. Why do I feel large banks like my own don't care if I stay or leave? The good jobs aren't going anywhere. No one is giving those up. Yeah, and a lot, and the employment statistics have been kind of obfuscated or they become somewhat confusing because it's based on people looking for work, right? You have to be looking for a job to be included in the unemployment statistics. And a lot of people post-COVID are not looking for jobs. They don't care anymore. Because a lot of people are thinking, with this awful health scare, you only live once. It's the YOLO economy. You only live once. And so people aren't looking for jobs. They just don't care as much anymore. In terms of the good jobs aren't going anywhere, no one is giving up. I don't know. I mean, there's always turnover. There's always turnover. And if you want to get the job of your dreams, then you got to network with people that work at whatever company is you want to work at. Get to know them. And when a job opening opens up, you can call upon those people and ask them for help. And I teach how to do this in semester 1 of my MBA program in the personal growth track. Yeah. All right. Next up, Stephen wrote, clerks, tellers, cashiers, low-level salesmen, selling pointless financial products. The lower-end finance leaders in-house never address compensation, but promote growth at no avail. And then you wrote, it's like if you're at the bottom of a smart industry, the attitude feels more like stay right where you are and then move up. Finance at the bottom becomes very vague. People indeed are leaving these overhyped, crummy jobs with laughable pay and absolute horrid outlook plans for one's future. Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. So I think one of the most misunderstood things about the finance industry is the fact that almost all jobs in finance are sales oriented. They are. Most of them are sales oriented. You're selling the services of a company in return, obviously, for compensation or investments. And the people that make it to the top of a lot of these finance firms, meaning partners, they're great salespeople. That's what they are. A partner is a salesperson. And you can learn these social skills as well. And I teach a lot of them in my MBA program. A lot of it is sales oriented. And what frustrates me about a lot of big banks, and I worked at Goldman as well. And Goldman doesn't hire the smartest people, which is why they hired me. They hire people that kind of get along and people that are good at sales, whatever. But I understand now, having worked at Goldman Sachs, I understand now why so many successful politicians come out of that place. Because people that do extraordinarily well in finance are great at sales. It is what it is. Yeah. And it can be frustrating too, because it's not a meritocracy. You don't eat what you kill. It's not based on how much money you make at the firm. It's based on how well you've networked within the firm as well. And that's why you have to find multiple mentors in any firm you work at to help you rise up through the ranks. We need multiple Yodas always. And mentor other people as well, because when one teaches, two learn. All right, give me 1 second here. All right, next up, Alex P. Keaton. Alex P said, do you think P2P, meaning peer-to-peer lending, in the banking industry is still relevant today? Yeah, it's something that's going to be more relevant in the future. And before I look at investing in any company, I ask myself this question. In 5 or 10 years, is this company or their technology or their product or service going to be more relevant than it is today? And I think peer-to-peer lending is something that's going to be incredibly relevant, especially when it comes to micro lending. It's kind of like investing in, Lending Tree, for example. It's out there. It's going to happen. And more people are going to be lending money to each other, as long as it's a somewhat regulated industry. Yeah. All right. Next up, Russian Preet wrote, Sir, can I get the chance to work with you? Thank you. I appreciate that. Every now and then, actually, on my website, up in the main menu, I write, we are hiring, and I get a ton of resumes, and then I take it down. Yeah, thank you. But just keep looking for it, because every now and then we need help. Yeah, thank you. All right. And then Stephen, who works in the finance industry, wrote, I also feel those who transferred into finance from other industries are hardly recognized. I look young, so I think part-time. It's plenty good for a young guy, not knowing in way older. All right, give me 1 second here. I lost my spot here. Hold a second. Oh yeah, much of the open jobs are for legitimate, experienced professionals or students and MBA graduates. Yeah, no, I would say that you can start anywhere, in any company, and make it to the top from the mailroom, even without an education. I have to give examples now. So Sidney Weinberg, who is the CEO of Goldman for a decade or two, he started from the mailroom, no education. Simon Cowell from American Idol, he started in the mailroom. David Geffen started in the mailroom. The former president of ESPN and the former editor-in-chief of Cosmopolitan, she started in the mailroom. A lot of people start in the mailroom. They work their way up to the corner office. Why? Because they're very social and they network a lot. You know what I'm talking about, the mail person in your company who delivers you the mail and talks about, hey, did you see the game last night? Like, very social. And I think the bottom line message here and what the takeaway is, what we can learn, is that relationships are more important than product knowledge. So you have to network a lot aggressively and find Yodas in your company or industry to help you grow. And as I mentioned earlier, you have to mentor others as well, because when one teaches, two learn. Yeah. All right. And Alex P said, Chris, I like the haircut, brother. Thank you. I appreciate it. Dude, I've been gray since my 20s. I remember I used to work at Goldman years ago. People would say, Chris Haroun is going gray, but that's okay. Yeah, so I kind of throw some stuff in here. It's kind of fun. I'm doing something a little bit different here, but I look like the guy from The Sopranos now. The guy that looks like this with the hair. So and I got the hair light on me as well. And my hair used to look a bit red when I dyed it. I got different color now. Yeah. I go to somebody named Dee Dee. I used to cut my hair for years, and there's this woman, Dee Dee, in Burlingame, close to where I live, that does my hair. She's great. Yeah. And I'm trying to convince her to change her business model to a subscription business model. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Sadiq wrote, not bringing religion into it. However, Islam suggests something called zakat, which is a kind of wealth tax on wealthy people, they have to pay a certain amount of their wealth. Yeah, that's interesting. I've never heard of that. Thank you. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, I really do think there should be a wealth tax. I really, it's just not fair. Because the highest tax bracket is close to 35 to 40% in America, and the richest people pay nothing in taxes. It's not fair. Yeah. And the world's getting better with this too. And again, I am a capitalist, but tons of countries just got together to come up with a minimum tax for corporations globally. That's a good thing. Yeah. As long as the world doesn't move left wing, it should be going this way. Yeah. Okay, next up, Christoph, a fellow libertarian, who said, Chris, do you know of any sources online that may provide a Canadian in a generally short amount of time a steady $1,000 per month of income? Yeah. So I think there's a couple ways. I mean, you can teach online, for example. There's plenty of places to do it. You can also go to upwork.com, or you can go to fiverr.com, fiverr.com, and basically sell or do anything online. It can be basic brochureware, creating wireframe documents for apps, creating presentation materials, using Photoshop, doing video editing, etc. Check it out, upwork.com, as well as fiverr.com. Yeah. And it doesn't matter where you live. Okay. And then Christoph wrote, I don't have much skills for online yet until I do your MBA. But in the meantime, I want to work online ASAP. Yeah, check out those two sources, man. Like Upwork.com as well as Fiverr.com. Yeah. Okay. Sadiq wrote, I feel there is no business without sales. It's true. What's a successful entrepreneur or CEO? They're salespeople. And I teach you how to sell in my program as well, in the sales, marketing, and communications track of my MBA program. Okay. And then you wrote, no business means no need for finance professionals. I think sales is probably the most important thing in business, or even negotiating and dealing with people in general. It helps in tackling many situations. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And without sales skills, I don't think that you can create a successful company, because an entrepreneur is selling themselves to raise money or to sell their products. And a CEO is a salesperson, etc. And you can learn this too. Yeah. I teach it. All right. And Rajesh wrote, I really love the work you put in. Thank you. You're so inspiring. Thanks, sir, for all these things you do. My pleasure. And thank you for being here. Thank you. And thank you all for your patience with me today. And if you're getting value out of this webcast, please click the like button as well. That'll help. Thanks. So stupid of me to ask that after I messed up big time today. Yeah. Click the down like button maybe instead. Okay. Okay. Next up, Addie wrote, what is more important, building a different product, meaning a product that is different in many ways from others in the same market, or better products, meaning a similar product but better, putting SaaS into focus. SaaS stands for software as a service. Yeah. Okay, so you're basically saying, do you build a brand new market, or do you enter a current market with a better product? I think it's all relative. It's kind of like you look at Uber. Uber didn't invent the taxi market. They just made it better. And so what I would do is I start to look at markets that have not yet been disrupted and try to disrupt those markets with a better product. Yeah. It's hard for me to answer, but in the third semester in my MBA program, I have a venture capital boot camp where I ask you a gazillion questions and I work with you to create a business model. And failing to plan is planning to fail. And I always have my students create business models and business plans that require $0 for them to put in at all. Because I only want you to make very scalable businesses. Yeah. And I teach that again in the third or fourth semesters in my MBA program. Yeah. All right. Let's see here. And Rajesh said, sir, I have a question. Chris, please. I have a question. I'm looking to land in digital marketing as my first career. What would be your advice on this? Any tips to do? Yeah. Yeah. So what I would say, of course, networking, I'm not going to go down that path. You know what I mean by that. I would go to LinkedIn and I would find a bunch of profiles of people that work in the industry. And I would look through their profile to see what experience they have and what technologies do they understand. And if there are certain tech products that they use from a digital marketing perspective that they've listed on their LinkedIn profile, then go online and learn those skills as well. But there's no substitution for networking. Yeah. It's like a gap analysis. It's kind of like, think about, where you are now, okay, and where you want to be in 10 years. And there's a gap, and just focus on filling that gap. And that's what Jeff Bezos does at Amazon. What he does, or what he did for many, many years, is every year he had his product managers in all sectors of Amazon, meaning Kindle, Prime, Amazon Web Services, etc. He'd have his product managers for all products write a press release today that's going to be released many years in the future. And that kind of creates a gap. Where are we now and where do we need to be? And then you focus on filling that gap to make that press release become a reality in the future. And we can do the same thing with our careers as well. Where are we now? Where do we want to be in 10 years? How do we fill that gap? And with your question, when it comes to digital marketing, go to the LinkedIn profile of people that work in digital marketing and see what skills they have and fill that gap. Yeah. And you can do it through internships as well. And I can go down that path as well if you want to ask me about that. Yeah. Okay. Whoops. I'm getting that buzzing thing on my neck here from this. It's supposed to keep my posture straight, but it's driving me crazy. Yeah. All right. Next up, I got Mark, who wrote, who's in my MBA program. He wrote, do we think we should tax the wealthy when they are creating thousands of jobs for families and changing the world? Yeah. It's a tough call. I still think we should. Not tax. I don't believe in taxing somebody out of existence. But I do think there should be some sort of wealth tax, right? And it's not going to hurt them. If you're worth $100 billion and you have to pay an extra 10% tax per year, that's $10 billion. That can do a lot of good for the have-nothings. Yeah. Okay. And then MT wrote, well, what if... That was just one of my props settling there. Well, that's my alarm to tell me it's 11 a.m. and the call is over. I'm so sorry. I gotta bolt. So I'm doing my office hours for my gold and platinum MBA students. Starts at 11:20 today. So I want to thank you all for your time today. I know there's a bunch more questions. Please save them and ask me next week. My vlogs drop every day at 8 a.m. God bless y'all. I'll see you next week for Office Hours week number 159. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time. And I will see you all next Thursday. And because I had to restart Wirecast, I don't have an end screen here. So I'm just going to end it now, as is. All right, guys, take care. I'll see you next week. Thank you. Thanks.